when you do a mapping, or sorry, a binding, when you do a binding, do you think that people are able to do that blind?
Gemini is taking notes.
I'm just wondering if you do bind entity.
Yeah, if I bind an entity, yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. It was the mapping between like.
Yeah. So this would be like either you can create a new one. It's wrong. So bind here should give you a choice to either select an existing one or model a new one.
Right. Okay.
If you model a new one, you can do it from the table, create from type from table, or you can model one from scratch. That's obviously missing. There should be a different action that lets you choose whether to bind to existing or create.
And if you wanted to, I suppose it's not like a massive question, but if you can see that I'm populating this part of my object with this is the source of it, do you like to know exactly where to look at that data, do you think, or do you need some sort of way of seeing sample data, being able to look through everything that's available? Or do you think that's really good?
So I mean, I definitely think that people are going to need to be able to browse their data catalog in some useful way. What the best way to do that is, I don't have a strong opinion on. Like, sure, you should be able to search here and find all the tables that have a column named, sales tax. You should be able to filter this based on what source system it's coming from, which is schema here. You should be able to filter based on table, etc. I'm not really sure how far down that road we need to go in this tool, but certainly within like the pipeline tool, I would want to be able to understand my full catalog and have lots of opportunities to interrogate it.
The main question is you can't do much of this UI.
Right.
Like I can't edit the table, I can't change the values.
You can see them.
So there's relatively minimal stuff we want to do. I think there's a edit data button that's maybe missing here that takes you to the pipeline. So
Yeah, it should probably be this one, which is edit in unified pipeline.
I'm sure it's the wrong icon for that page.
Yeah, I agree.
So what exactly would you be editing? Is it the transformation?
Yes, you would edit the transformations because that's canon.
Do you think we'd have like default objects? Like every table has an object?
That is a great question. I don't know. I don't think we necessarily want that if we have a bunch of intermediate temp tables that are getting populated. But maybe every output table of the pipeline does. I think there's questions to answer there about what makes life easiest for users. It's certainly reasonable to try to infer which things are probably going to end up as objects and help that use that.
Yeah, maybe if it's so easy to create that a default object for a table.
You could also just assume that it's an uncreated object and treat it as a draft that hasn't been instantiated, but treat it like it's been instantiated until somebody saves it.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we do for dynamic events.
Okay.
Okay, so then you've got catalog, you've got data bindings that link them together. Then basically everything below here is transport. Yeah.
Just for me to understand, why do we have analysis in the environment?
Where?
Like you have these groups analysis in the environment.
Oh, because I haven't fixed it.
Okay.
Basically, I think we should think about this in a 3-layer model of consumers, which would include analyses, data, which would include your catalog and your bindings, semantics, which would include most of the rest of this, and then maybe governance is a separate thing.
Would that mean that ontology then includes like dashboarding?
I don't think the ontology includes dashboarding. I think consumers include dashboards. I'm not wedded to that, but I feel like the semantic concepts that you expose in a dashboard belong in the ontology, but how you actually expose them in charts and tables, etc., is more presentation layer concern. What do you think?
Because the way I understood it, this is the UI, let's say, of the ontology that lives in a data pod. The the ontology that lives in the data pool doesn't have anything with regards to dashboards or clients or like.
So I think you can still see them because the fact that there is an analysis that has been created makes it a node in a semantic graph. This is connected and has dependencies on other things. I wouldn't want to use this tool to edit it. So I would want to be like, okay, it exists. You can see it's there. You can see how it depends on other things.
Okay, it's more like a link.
Right.
Okay.
So if I went to analyses here and I'd be like, here's my order to cash dashboard, you can see it. If you want to edit it, go to views.
I'd
That's
rather not list here. It looks duplicated above the list. Let's see the dashboard page.
fine. But I think you need to be able to see all of the nodes of the semantic.
So I think putting a link to analysis from say the objects very reasonable. Right, like so I think to the this link from the perspective to the package, right?
Yep.
So that credit request link I think is super valuable.
Got it.
This I'm more skeptical of because there exists this page in the dashboard.
Yep, that's fair. Not wedded to having this at all.
And my second question is, why data bindings is not part of the semantic model?
That's a fair question. I think it's the glue between the data and the semantic model. If I have to save it somewhere, I probably save it in the semantic model so that I can transport it, at least as defaults. So it probably does really belong to it.
Is there a reason your findings is
Because I think the entity as the interface that is the same whatever you take it to, whichever database you attach it to, whereas the bindings are specific to a particular database. Why do I have a list of them? Is that the question? Mostly so that you can have something like a health here. It's like, hey, go find all the things that are wrong with your binding, which will happen when you do a transportation.
How is this list different than what you see in objects?
Nope. So if you go into your, well, sorry, the list is different. So here you have objects. Objects have bindings. So you can bind the table to the object. You can bind multiple tables to the same object. Just get union together. So you can absolutely find these things by going through the object and looking at its binding. I think from a user standpoint, it's useful to have the jewel here that tells me what things need attention that I can go fix. You could bury that in objects and say, okay, there's objects that have problems. Because I think in this case, you're going to fix them all in the same way if they're all bindings.
Would it make sense to keep it as a category called data bindings, or are we just requiring a space where we surface things that require your attention?
Fair question.
Like,
I'm not wedded to it.
the dashboard.
Yeah, that could be what this is primarily, is the troubleshooting dashboard.
Then we are aligned. For me, I just wanted to understand your concept. That's why I asked the question. And there we can add all the issues, like for example, with missing descriptions, I don't know, PQL errors.
Yeah, we could change that into problems or needs attention dashboard or the pig health dashboard or whatever we'll call it. I think so. Like you should be able to query it. When you say binding, you mean a binding to a field or a binding to a table? You have to have at least one thing bound to it to get any rows. If you have nothing bound to it, you'll get no rows. How we error that, I guess, is a question for us to decide. Do we just treat that as there are no rows, or do we treat that as you can't run the query? I'm not sure what's more helpful for end users, but that's how we should decide that. Make sense? Cool. Then, of course, you can see the relationships. This is a bad example because it currently only has one in the database, but you can have a list of them and whatever. Easy. You can look at your relationships. You can decide whether they're defined by a mapping table or a foreign key. You can do the mapping on whatever set of primary key fields you need to do them on, much as is already designed in the product. You should be able to have a graph here that shows how your type is connected to other things and sort of spread out and see all of the relations. It's an out-of-date graph, but you should also have a dependency graph where your type is in the middle and you can see all the things that are before it and all the things that depend on it. And you've got sort of that view that says if something goes wrong with this, or I change this, what are all the things that are dependent on me? If something's wrong with this, where are all the places it could have gone wrong after it? Then you should have an analysis, which is essentially your instance explorer that says, okay, you want to jump off. This is sort of an explore use case where you're starting from your graph and you're looking at your data. You're like, okay, what's happening in customer? Okay, let me follow Alice here. Then I should be able to pop out my instance explorer and carry on there. Probably something here that goes open in Studio, where you can now save it and share it and all those things. I see those as being a nice sort of, not with that particular approach, but I think that is an approach that you can bridge between tools by saying, okay, pop a modal from the other tool that you can look at, but you can't save it until you go to that other tool.
About the instance explorer, what does it do? And do you have the demo?
Yeah, we can just have a show the instance explorer.
While you're trying to find it, for me, it's confusing that in the semantic model, I would expect to see only the nodes because I think the semantic graph, it's maybe it's not, so I think it's like mixed concepts there, right? Like, because a relationship, it's not a node, object events are a node on the left side.
Yeah, so whether you want relationships to be here, I think is a fair question. Again, I put them here because they're a thing that is represented as an asset in a package, I think.
Is the node?
A relationship is an edge, but edges have more detail than they currently do. So at the moment, our relationships don't carry enough information, like what kind of relationship am I? Is this a parent-child relationship? Is this an actor relationship? Is this a dependency relationship? So I don't want to make an explicit statement here. I'd be perfectly happy if we killed the list of relationships. That's not a useful thing to have.
Do you mean the question is what is a more useful context? Just to see a list of relationships or to see it in the context of objects?
I think it's probably more useful in the context of objects because that's how you're going to navigate. I literally made this stick here so that you could see all the different components and select I was going to skip relationships when walking through this.
But is the plan to put there the nodes of the semantic layer?
So the nodes of the semantic layer are basically everything here except relationships. So objects, events, process models, analyses, people join graphs, metrics, filters, visual tables. Those are all nodes in the semantic graph. So here's a semantic graph that contains all the different kinds of things and all the relationships between them.
I suggest we focus on whether users should think about these as elements of the semantic graphs, not like metric and filters from there. So that's the normal, for example.
I mean, I think that you want them to be able to see them, especially in dependency graphs. I'm not sure how useful they are in semantic relationship graphs. Which?
What do you mean?
So semantic relationships describe how different entities are related to each other.
How different nodes are related.
How different entities are related to each other.
What's the difference between entities?
Not all entities necessarily have to be represented as nodes.
How do we decide?
Well, I think this is what Jonathan was talking about. Is a metric a node that you want to show in the graph? It is a node in the abstract graph. Is it a node that you want to display on your thing here?
Like it's not a package manager node, but it is a conceptual node. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So let's look at one. So we got like a get customer value is obviously dependent on the order that it's attached to. So from a dependency standpoint, there's a relationship there. Is it a useful, semantically meaningful relationship to display in a semantic graph? Maybe not. Like, how are you going to traverse that link? And what's the need to do so? But I mean, I think that's a decision that you can make based on how users want to use it. It's easy enough to put it in as a filterable thing and then say, I do or don't want to show it as my default state.
Yeah, I think
Skeptical.
I think it's cool. Like, how do we imagine users use these graphs? I think that are they just kind of more for? Are they? Is there utility in them?
I think they're,
Is it more just to kind of? Are people using it in their workflows?
so I think that there is utility because you can do things like create a relationship from one thing to another. Like, okay, tell me about this thing. So for example, if somebody's added a delivery item here and you want to create a relationship to delivery, you can do that. Okay, in the delivery, create a relationship from delivery, and off we go, right? And you can create that. I'm not sure it actually works in the demo. Yeah, we can try. Never foreign key, delivery ID, create relationship. Did it actually work? No, it didn't. So there should now be a link between those two things.
Yeah.
Right. Is it the most valuable way? I don't know. It's certainly useful for visualizing and for understanding connections. I think what you're going to want to be able to do is group these things by different taxonomies. So for example, one common taxonomy is process, where I want to be able to see all of the things that are in a process, and maybe I can see the connection between processes and then drill into a specific process. So get a double click here.
Yeah.
How useful is that day to day? I don't really know. It's definitely valuable as a demo.
Yeah, totally. Looks good.
And as a sales thing, it's definitely valuable. But whether somebody needs that, I think you can do it all via list views if you want to.
Yeah. Our conclusion from this UI and the main graph was demo only.
Mostly demo only, yeah. And I don't think that would be surprising here either, especially as this is going to scale to far too many events and things to show on one.
There's another advantage of this because when it comes to looking at lineage for things that are in consumption, this is a better version of the graph than the visual pipeline builder.
Why is it better?
Because that's a more linear.
That's what you want for lineage.
It is linear and it doesn't handle the spider diagram with different relationships. So the way it is visualized, the logic is slightly different. Here you can see like when we show relationships between objects, it gets super complicated if you try to build that on those swim lanes in a visual pipeline builder experience. Versus here, that allows for more easy exploration of the graph, and you can modify it and possibly drill down and branch it further to, different levels of granularity. So from that point of view, it could be a good, like ontology sits right in the middle. So there's an advantage of either going upstream into your data and then have that visualization for the lineage that's around data and tables, and then go downstream, which is going more into like how my views are connecting, how's my metric connecting. And then there could be two different.
I would argue you want both. I actually think that a lineage view that extends all the way back to source tables and all the way to analysis is pretty useful, where basically you pick whatever node you want to be the center, and you look at all the things that come out from that and all the things that are to the left of that. That's a useful view. It is different from the what is this related to, and what are all the relationships, which I think is this view. So I think you have a dependency graph view. I think you have a relationships view. This is the relationships view. I'm not totally convinced that people actually use the relationships view to do very much on a day-to-day basis, because I think you can use list views for that. I think the dependency graph views are very useful for understanding where that something's going wrong, or what things might be changed if I make an edit.
I mean, this also presents dependencies. It's not that it's not showing you dependencies. It's just a different variant of the visualization. So there's the difference in style of visualizing data.
Yes. What do you want to do?
The thing is
clustering things together. So what things are related.
The question is that when you are, I think this was also something that we were discussing this morning. Do we want to directly from views jump into looking at the raw tables that it's coming from and see the entire lineage go via the ontology to that? Or do we want to have a breakpoint in between, which is landing on the ontology and then looking into the data?
If I would like be the voice of the customer here or the user, they would want to see data lineage immediately to be able to validate what they say.
But then is it via this
No.
view or is it going
This
directly
is
to the
the way I
table?
see it, this is node level, like the nodes. The way they need it is like column level, like which column, which info from which, like this data, what transformations happen between all these steps, and then I can like I can validate each step of the transformation that this data happen. So it's more like data lineage.
That's the dependency graph, basically. That's what I imagine you have as a dependency graph. You've got all of your pipeline, then you have a binding to an object.
Dependencies is because dependencies is what you define as it, but where data lineage, the way I say it, is like all the transformations that this data went through.
Yeah. Fine.
So dependency graph is like I can add the dependency between delivery item and delivery.
Oh, okay. I would not call that dependency. I would call that some other kind of relationship. It's like a header line kind of relationship.
Or like, for example, a view depends on a knowledge model.
No.
Yeah, you could call it a data dependency if that makes you happier. And it's like the implicit relationship that exists if I query a thing. So if my underlying SQL query references a thing, then there is a dependency relationship on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I don't have to explicitly model.
I guess I just want to validate all the transformations. I don't know what to do.
Today we don't model data dependence, right? We need to have
But we can infer them by doing.
Well, we actually have them.
Yeah.
We store them, but we just don't show.
And surface them anywhere. And so you actually should have a full end-to-end lineage. And mostly you shouldn't have to explicitly say this is related to that. That should be inferred by what is the transformation
But
doing.
in the use case, like for going through a lineage, what are your exact jump points from views into the data lineage?
Yeah, I see a number 100, right? And then this is an aggregation. Then I was like, okay, this aggregation is on top of 3 columns, and then this 3 column is three different calculations. These 3 calculations. Then I'm like going to the one calculation, right? I see, okay, this calculation is transforming this table. This table is transformed in this data pipe in there. This is transformed again in that step. This is my raw data, and I need to go through all this panel or like data streaming, whatever, and validate that, okay, this calculation is correct. And then I go on the other one, and then on the other one, and then I can say.
So based on what I hear, it doesn't matter what object is involved in between, right? It's going directly to the transformation.
I think you want to see every step. So anywhere that there's a change.
In this case, do you really need to see what the object is, or you just want to go to the relevant transformation?
Because there could be more things beyond the transformation. Because what you could be doing is looking at a KPI that is coming from a join graph, that is coming from an object, that is coming from some transformation pipeline. So there can be more steps after you're done. Like there could be people transformations that are happening after you're done with the transformation pipeline results and tables. So I think you need all of them, from source table to the number that you're displaying.
The definition of entity might be the problem, not just the underlying. The definition of the thing might be wrong. Like if you, for example, think about your creative log, the creative log specification might be off. So I need to show you not just data lineage, but also like this is a this is a KPI, this is a GMT, this fields. Let me see if that definition is correct.
So what I'm trying to understand is, would you want to take the user and bring them here in the ontology to fix it? Or do you want to take them first to the visual pipeline builder and then bring them into the ontology?
That's a good question. Imagine you want to do it from whatever context you're in. So if you're looking at the thing in views, you want to be able to say, show me lineage for the KPI in a box. I imagine that would look like a modal that pops up and says, here's the whole lineage end to end, full dependency. You can click to whatever point you want, and that takes you to the appropriate tool to edit the thing. Which could be in ontology or it could be in pipeline.
The way I would put it is like in the data pipeline, you can do like, let's say 100 transformations. In the ontology, you might do 5 transformations to your data. Just because of that, I would say 95% of the times you might need to go. You might want to.
But we're not doing transformations in ontology.
The relationships. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Like it's an aggregation.
Okay.
Yeah. So to validate this transformation, like this will be affected by 2 things: either something corrupted in your data, which is more like data pipeline, or something is wrong with your relationships that you defined in the ontology,
Or your PQL is wrong,
or your PQL is
or
wrong.
your join graph is wrong.
I would say because in the data pipeline you can modify your data. Like there are millions of ways to do that. Compared, it's more common something to go wrong there than something to go wrong in the.
I think it also is traces intelligence systems.
Yeah.
And if it was ontology, I'm not sure if it's like we need something that will show you multiple systems again. And trace it back.
When you say system, you're talking about the pipeline building and the ontology, or
A view to a KPI definition, to a PQL query, to a underlying ontology definition, to an underlying table, to a distribution and transformations. It's like, I mean, by definition, it touches everything in the stack.
So it has like 8 steps. 2 are in the ontology, 6 are in the data pipeline.
Aaron, I think that
Sorry? Yeah, 1 is in the view.
They could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't know where they are and how many there are for any given thing, depends on the source system.
This is the epitome of a cross-cutting horizontal view of your data.
Which is also the point of the system we're building, to let you take it from something raw to something usable. You'll be able to see where in the pipeline went wrong.
it's just some of the thinking for our lineage drawer in the drawer, right?
He's in love with it. I see.
But the idea being that you can
Yeah.
start from your KPI and you say, this number doesn't look right. And then you see the attributes that came up with it. And then you say, I need to keep going, go up to the attribute that can feed to that attribute. Then you get to the object, and wherever you think that the problem is most likely to be, you can jump from there to the relevant tool, right? So it might be that you end up in the ontology, it might be that you end up in the vigilance, it might be that you end up somewhere else.
There's potentially an alternative way that each entity has some sort of debugging page that tells you. Like each entity has a debugging page that tells you, okay, let me see if the issue is in my area or a link to the next area. Might be.
So I was imagining that you would have something like not this graph, but the dependency graph on each.
I don't think graph is not right.
You can show the drawer. The drawer that he's pushing is
Yeah.
similar to what you are describing.
do
The
you
drawer,
want to show the?
Yeah, I need to give me a minute.
it's like every entity has that drawer. It shows all the links to that
Which is not very different from this relationship graph, like the way it's visualized.
The debugging page needs to show you links to things that started, but you also need to see the definition.
Yes. Do you know how to share it?
But I just sent you the thing in Slack. And then you can take over sharing.
Like the experience you mentioned where you basically.
Sorry.
Where also,
It's recording.
Oh, now you're gonna do
It's fine. We'll figure it out.
where you pinpoint on the graph, you centralize it at one node.
Yep.
And have the downstream upstream from that.
Yep.
Is basically, I think, what he's saying.
That
It's
was
something
exactly
common
my
thing that you can just put in a bunch of places.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a version of it that I've actually got in my dev version too. We've got the e-commerce order. And then you can go back to customer and it comes back to either. Right, but that's like the layout. It's more helpful.
So
I think
yeah.
validate the metric below, right?
Which one?
I think you had like a validate a metric user journey, or no?
This is the one,
Is a validated.
but I think
Okay, so here you go, here you go. So yeah, exactly. The idea being that you can start wherever you like, right? You start with an object in this case. You can see that there are a couple of related event logs, either through this, or you can see by looking at the lineage going off to the right towards kind of the consumers. And I expand this. I say, okay, there's one event log that's joined to this. Show me the details. Loading. And then this refocuses on now my event log, right? So I've jumped from one entity type to a completely different one. If I wanted to edit this, right, it goes to the relevant tool. If I say what are the metrics that are attached to this event log, related to this event log, I jump to that and I end up in the relevant tool again. This is the old style, but anyway, yeah, it's the same kind of idea, right?
So my point is that this only shows half of the stuff necessary, because it is useful to see what comes before or after, right, which is what you're showing on the issue. But just as useful as the page you were just showing us, this one.
Yeah.
Because how do I know that the current node I'm on is correct?
Yeah.
Right. There are two things that could be wrong. Something in the source was incorrect, or the thing that I'm looking at right now is correct.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the build your KPI view, build your knowledge view, right? But this is the norm, which is I'm at this node, this node, right?
Then I want to step in.
And then if the answer is yes, this all looks fine, then I go to the next one. Yeah, that is the experience. And so you can imagine a world where what we want to show you actually is not like what we want to show you is not a lineage view graph. What we want to show you instead is like a series of pages that say, okay, here's the node that you're on, here's the debugging for whether this node is correct, and here's a series of nodes that takes you to it. Right. And so the idea being that if I was to step backwards through this logically, I would say, okay, this table is wrong. What's wrong with this table? So I'll get a view like the bottom right. Like, okay, well, this row doesn't look right, or this column doesn't look right. Okay, zoom into where this table, where this column came from. What's the definition? Was this right? Was the source data incorrect? And so I expect that the sort of best debugging experience here is iterative. It's walking back in time. And each node or each step in that journey is one step in the configuration.
So you missed the preview of the step, the validation,
Yeah, it's the validation of the step that you're on.
Current step.
Not just the link back.
I see, okay.
Yeah, there's got a window.
Is
part of it also like you could even you could show like data like for
I mean,
each step.
this experience I think is actually a great example of like it shows you the definition, it shows you a preview of the output data, I think,
Yes.
and it shows you some, I think, like machine generated or whatever, like some metadata about that.
Yeah.
And the associated variables and parameters, right? You can imagine that becomes something like the related entity list. Right, and so that like helps you navigate. Because the thing is that the experience for editing most of these things should look the same as the experience for debugging.
Yeah.
Right. For the vast majority of times,
Yeah.
I want to drop you straight into the same experience you used to edit it. What I think is missing in most of our current experiences is that you can't actually see the source data that's feeding the thing. Right. So if you look at this, right, I can see the output table on the bottom. But I can't see this. I can't read one of those. Like blah 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 the ID, right? I think it's the last line there. I can't see what that ID column is per se, right? And so like I don't know the source where this stuff is coming from. Tell me about it. I think that's probably generally the same across our experiences. It's like how I look at the source data, it's feeding into the table. But otherwise, like I would say this is generally true for all of it, which is show you the experience. It's the same experience we should dump you into for the debugging, and then change me and show a source table.
Yeah,
like links.
I like it.
Yeah, you should things.
Yeah, and it's not shown here, but here this allows you, for example, if you go to the payment date, you can now drill down on the payment date, and then the payment date gives you a completely set new feature of columns. Exactly. That's how it works right now.
Yeah.
So I think like I said,
You can do this with like the tabs. multi-tabs. Yes. So each tab tells you like all the steps that you took to validate.
Oh, yeah.
So tab 1 is like API or like whatever. Tab 2 is the column. Tab 3 is the raw data, and tab 4 is maybe the transformation.
Well, so it's just you might have m different steps. So
You just keep rolling.
yeah, I just don't know if you want n tabs. That gets shitty, but yeah, you want to know at least what the predecessors are.
I think it's fine that this view resets every time I switch to the next.
Yeah, if like you want to know the immediate predecessors of the current tab and be able to navigate to the immediate predecessors.
Makes sense. Okay, you just killed the drawer idea finally. Just using
Throw in the drawer.
You want to jump back to
Yeah.
that?
The drawer is on the UI.
No, we can use the drawer, but like the how what you do there is what you do here.
It's a slightly newer version and the one I was showing you before.
The overall visualization now?
So what Jonathan said something very important, right? He said that you are jumping between things, but you haven't done any validation. Like in the demo that Theo did, he was like, "This is my KPI." Then I went to the event log, but there was no page for you that you actually saw something wrong with that event log, and then you jumped directly to the next step. But Jonathan said, like, great, all of that flow from KPI to event log to this. But before you do it, we need to provide a screen to the user that can actually validate, see the data, see the definition, see before you jump to that.
So we did have, so I won't show again, but like we did have a split between the definition and the data, but I wonder if that's even enough for you to.
Do you want to share again?
Share again.
All right.
I'm not ready.
So Jonathan, at every step, he wanted to see you should see the knowledge explorer.
Yeah. So if you're zoomed into this node, I should be able to edit and debug the node. And then I think relative to a current edit experience for things, we need to add some related entities that take me backwards or the sources, and ideally show you something about that.
Yeah.
Like here's a preview of that table.
You're not sharing here.
I think I understand what you mean. I think. Yeah, let me share just for 2 seconds. So here I'm in an event log, right? For example, if I switch from definitions to data here, the idea would be that this content would be replaced with, in this example, the event log table and the edge table. But I suppose
what I think is missing here is the definition, right? So what events were selected, why it is. So my claim is generally we should be dropping you into the edit experience for the entity, and the edit experience we should add in some links that take you to the source of the things that you're editing.
And from that edit experience, if there is something that is linked to it, you go to edit, you go back to thing.
In this case, like if you just go back to your example of the visualization that you had, Theo.
Yeah.
So in this case, if you were at that event log, so you would show all the entities left and right. So when you're diving in,
this current UI is showing all the entities that are left.
This is the navigate to the next thing.
Yeah.
Step. The other step is show me the definition of this event log.
So let's say I'm on that event log, and then I see the definition of things, and I should still be able to have that lineage explorer with me.
I think
Or
you just need to see the previous. So just related entities that are coming.
So what are the 3 incident related, incident resolved, incident escalated, and what the 3 things are?
This thing is showing you a lot, right? It's
Yeah.
saying, I'm here, and it's showing me stuff like way back.
Yeah.
Right. The problem is that this is very unlikely to be true. What you're more likely to get is like here, and then here,
Yeah.
and then some like 1,000 steps, right? The fan out. Once I get 1 or 2 pops away, the fan out just gets. Right. So what I'm saying is, like, A, show me the debugging before this node. B, just show me this. Right.
So
What's the next
everybody
step
knows
of the
one.
pipeline? and I can navigate because I'm gonna like I don't know like I know I can jump here. Like how do I jump 2 hops away or 3 hops away? Like that seems relatively unlikely. So if we just show you these hops, then you can just sort of step backwards 1 step, and then you can then you
So
can
we're
look at
just
that thing and
making
then
it
you-
progressive, basically. So from that, you just go to one of those transformations. From that, you go 1 step back into the previous one. So it's just a controlled way of,
Exactly. That way you find where did it go wrong.
Yeah.
But there's no point in looking at the whole graph because it gets way out of hand.
I do think one, because you guys are thinking about patterns. One thing that this kind of experience would benefit from is like the stack trace of where I came from. So, it's very likely that you're you're like, this thing is fine. Let me go back to the previous one. That is possible if you remember where you came from. But it might be hard if you're a couple of those team. So you could imagine a world where we keep some track of where you've been, so you know how to get back.
yeah, I think that tracking becomes important the moment you start hiding things around it. So like if you go take one of the trajectories, like just, the way we discussed 1 step back and 1 step back, then you're just following a singular path and you don't see the other
What this is
options.
going to do is they're just going to start opening things back. Right, so it's like, this is after right, so like most people are doing this by basically doing the fan out at each step, and then okay, this is the one that I'm going to see that fan out the next. So I mean, we can do that. I think that's the natural thing we do. We can give it a browser, or we can give you some history or breadcrumb to say this is where you came from. As you get back and forth, I'm not super convinced that we need to give you some complicated tool for this.
Yeah, I'm also not. I mean, as much as I like Graph View, I think it's nice. It's not super necessary. You could have a list of dependencies and just navigate to the next dependency and decide which one is the one. Because if you only care about incidents and the things immediately to the left, this is not that long a list. It's okay, here's the 3 dependencies. Debug the next one.
See, I definitely take the point about you kind of progressing backwards step by step. When it comes to all the stuff that's to the right,
That's a different use case there.
that's what's going to break if I
Exactly.
if I change stuff or if I delete stuff, right?
Exactly.
So, and I mean, it could be in a list as well, right?
It could.
But
I mean, it's kind of nice from an understanding perspective to put it in the graph.
That's the
thing.
But the limitation with that is it doesn't scale to thousands of nodes. So we need to see how many nodes there actually are before we get too attached to that concept.
I think if we have an understanding of what is the number we're dealing with, then we can try to
Sure.
figure it
But I
out.
think that's an empirical question. that
The
we have to
main
look through.
question is, do people need this kind of an overview, or are they working in like a very focused, granular way? Because both of them have their, like, we can figure out ways to build interfaces for supporting either or.
I think you need the granular thing, and I think you like to have the overall sense of where am I with regard to the overall. But you have to be able to do the granular thing, or you can't.
Of course, yeah.
So if I have to pick one, then I'll say do granular first. But it's definitely nice to understand how it situates with the rest of the.
I think we can, both of these can coexist, and that would be an ideal experience where you have you have an overview and a context that you can get that, where am I, and maybe jump a few hops and then do something like focus on something else. But when you're focusing, then we have what you said, a very detailed drill down onto that specific asset or entity, where you can navigate to the previous or the next hop from there without coming to the graph again. So you could navigate in a linear fashion, but it gets really difficult to orient yourself when you have too many things on the right. So having that overview is always nice to surface back and then see a bigger scheme of things.
Attached to each. So you think about that, I'm 2 hops away, I'm already at 20 to 30 elements. So like go up from that. So I'm not even sure that 2 hops away is viable to show.
We can show the real example, the knowledge graph. Let me see if I can enable it.
Yeah, you can just look at it.
Yeah, the one we built. Which one do you mean? I mean the knowledge graph, the prototype that we did.
And then when you look at the real data,
The one Jeffrey did.
Yes. Knowledge retheming is equal false. That's here. Knowledge model retheming is the feature flag for that one.
I actually don't know. I have. I think I have it here. I can send it to you.
Found it.
You put it up here.
It's the most straightforward feature flag name. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Actually, it is what I want it to be.
Did you send me the link? Can you send me the link?
I already did. It's in the chat.
Yes, you can see my screen now. If I go to a knowledge graph, so here I will select one KPI, time rate. See, yeah, for example, this is a good example. So we start from paid on time.
So just going backwards to the right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the KPI, average paid on time. It uses the two KPIs. This KPI, which is number of invoice, the distinct number of invoice times, and the distinct number of paid on time. Then for each one of them, you go, okay, it's using this column. And then there is also one logic is relevant. This is an aggregation column, right? Not aggregate, but this is business logic. And then this business logic it uses this column, and then this one uses this column. And then this way you can go backwards and see everything that is being used.
Those are CAs, right? The intermediary columns are CAs.
Yes. Calculate that which is here. So it's, for example, it's cleared, and this is how you can like validate your KPI. You go column by column, and we gave this to Eric. Let me see, and he's the knowledge graph is there from the product incubation. To ask, we asked him, how would you use it? How would you validate having this temp knowledge graph? And he provided a lot of feedback, blah, blah, blah. And he said that ideally I have the combination. Oh, I'm not sharing. Sorry. Share my we asked him like, what is this? What do you miss here for you to validate properly? And his feedback was like, ideally I have combination. I will do my entire screen and see. So the thing that ideally I have a combination of like this graph, right? Of like, so I know where to jump, and like the the knowledge explorer that we showed before. So this way I can edit things, but I know where I started from and where I need to go next step.
So he wants this alongside
Side of the,
the code of the logic alongside the output.
Yeah.
The adding the data.
The one on the top that helps him to navigate, like go back and forth, everything. The one below it, because he clicked on the one on the top, and then you see all the information.
Everybody gets a chance to present.
That's good. This is good technology. If you just take over the screen.
So this is the lineage.
Oh my.
One SAP transform. This is for an existing slowness catalog content.
34% of nodes are shown.
Correct.
that's
So-
35%.
This is one process. On this thing.
Yeah.
This is why I'm skeptical of our, like, we can show a graph in a week, right? Because this is literally, so I can zoom in here. This is SAP instruction. Then you'll see here, this goes to instruction, see one table, one transformation, this is objects, events, table outputs. Right. So this is just a classic. So I'm skeptical that, like, this is like one process, right? So this is a relatively simple case that we're talking about, and it's already going to look something like this.
But realistically, you want to look at one node
Yeah.
and look at the sentence for one node. So how about
This
look
is
at one node?
this is filtered to one node.
Which node?
The SAP.
Yeah, but that's the wrong end. You want to
Filter by like a metric.
So you filter.
Like, what would this look like for the example that
I did.
yeah, I'm sure.
Drill down to node.
I mean, if you insist on looking at every possible thing that comes out of SAP, sure, it's going to be.
But even then, there's something that like you can control the levels. Like, it's a bit of a Google Maps example. If you are at that altitude, you see the key nodes, which is maybe just a cluster of objects or, a higher entity from which you can in a controlled way then go to the next levels or
Yeah.
zoom in.
Maybe so, like that requires a taxonomy though, then you have to
You
manage.
can have that, yeah, but you can also define it rules based, like if there are so many things, then this should be the starting level. You only start with this, and then when you zoom in 10% more, this is what you start to present.
Yeah.
So there are ways to manage heavy visualizations.
These are ones you start if you pick like individual stage levels, then you can get some of these.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of the example of what we'll do. Like look at the end node and tell me what came before it, not look at the start node and tell me everything that came from it.
Yeah, I mean, depends on which one you select. So we do this.
Yeah, that's
this is like,
fairly obnoxious, but not
this is
outrageous.
which one is this? Customer master credit management.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably stretching to the limits of what you want to do.
But then in this case, like each line is a transformation.
Yeah.
But the logic that we are following in the pipeline, if we do the
Each
same,
node is a table.
Yeah, each line is
Each
transformation.
each line is a transformation, right? So if you cut out that noise, then it already cleans up the graph quite a bit.
Which nice.
So right now, your eyes are also reading these boxes, right? Every time. Are you able to click on that?
She's just saying.
Remove the labels.
So if you,
Fine. Yeah, I mean, it's duplicative for sure. It doesn't add any information.
so it cuts down the complexity of the graph to quite an extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of the limits of what I would consider like a manageable, useful, kind of descendant graph.
If someone does need to do a task where they need this information, how are we expecting them to get it now? Or do it now?
Well, you do it one step at a time.
You do it one step at a time, and they probably have to keep this in there as a mental model in their head.
That's what I mean. So,
So this complexity is already there, and we don't. Perhaps this is a fine way to present
Let's be
it.
clear, all of these are easy cases because the OCDM transforms, we know which tables feed what.
Yeah.
What happens in most cases, then you go into these transforms, I might have 20 tables, 30 tables there. which case debugging that is an enormous pain in the ass.
Which is true. So I think there are two versions of it, that you just show all the tables at once and then go browse within that, or you start from, like, you ask for a starting point. Is there a specific table or entity you're interested in? And use that as a,
That's what is assumed.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still, where like, I mean, today, for example, you start from review and you pick a specific table. What will happen is you hit a knowledge model, and that knowledge model has some thousand tables. Goes it down. And it blows up. So because we have these nodes that are basically fun.
yeah, because so the thing is that if there are 100 nodes that are next to something, you still have to list them, right? So it still is a problem to solve anyway, whether it's in a list or whether it's in a graph.
Yeah, the question, you obviously need to know one step. Like, you need to know what's next to me so you can successfully debug. It's nice to have the full thing so you know where you are in the thing. But if I were debugging this, I would have this open in one tab and be like, okay, this helps me situate, and then I'd be like going down the list here. It doesn't make sense to try and put this on the same screen as the other thing that I'm now splitting screen to try to debug. Like, I don't want the top half of my screen to look like this, and then I only get the bottom half to edit the thing that I'm actually trying to debug.
I mean, the goal is you have to alternate to these experiences.
Yeah, I think the users are, at least the feedback that we got from some of the customers, I think the research that Vandana did, is that users are complaining about having to open
Everybody
multiple
always complains about that, and
tabs.
it's because it sucks, but have we got a better alternative?
The thing is that doesn't Databricks also has they have this visual,
Yeah.
and then next to that they have the debugging split screen and a panel, so you can do things in the same environment.
I think that
If there's enough room on the screen to show all the things you want to do, then it makes sense to put them on the same screen. If there's not enough room, then you have to handle it. I don't know where this is on that scale. I'm happy to look at if Databricks has a good solution for it. That's great. Just depends how much
I
context.
think we are all aligned, right? I don't think
We don't need to go build the UI.
Right.
A page like this needs to exist. You need to work to get until it works. That's all.
Yeah.
We don't need to build
Here is a wrong version of a dependency graph. At least it looks like a dependency graph. Colors are nice. Colors are beautiful. The next thing I want to show you guys was events. And so events, we've got, I'm modeling here the idea that you've got event log type structures that have multiple kinds of events in them. So what you would do here is you would model the order lifecycle event and bind it to a table. And then what you would see is, okay, I can have subtypes by defining that the event type attribute here is kind of a discriminator column. And by doing that, it automatically shows you what are the subtypes that exist there. Here's a different example. Let me look at order lifecycle types and product. Here's a different example that has not just dynamic, but you can actually relabel. So you could say, hey, I want to relabel my thing so that it then becomes permanent. And then even if there are no instances left, you still have the sub-event type. What that means is you've now got the sub-event is its own thing in the graph that you can see what's adjacent to the sub-event, which means you can now have links directly to sub-events. There's nothing particular here that stops you from having further subtypes. I think I had an example of that, whether it's still here. You can have sub-events of sub-events because now they're all just events and you're deciding how you create them. And there's also the notion of business events, which is going the other way and grouping them up again. So you could have my sales order created here thing and now group and say, hey, I want to declare what the grouping event is and what rules I want to have for combining them. And
don't we have a better way to do this? Because I feel like event types and sub-event types, It's very confusing. Every time I try to explain it to users, it's horrible. I don't know, like event types and event logs or activity tables, like, like a different type. Like the same way you have events, you have event logs. An event log, you can create it from raw data, or you can create it by combining some events.
Yeah.
I don't know. But having event types and sub-event types, it's a concept very confusing to use.
I think the point is that you don't have to care about whether it's a parent event type or a sub-event type. They're all just event types.
Yep, we are aligned. This is how you should think about it, but like explain that to users every time, because I've been trying to explain that for the past 1 year and I can't. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to tell someone that model one event type, but then you can model the sub events of that event type into one attribute. It's like,
Why would you share it? Why would you show you?
That's a fair question. Why don't we show Murphy? What would the Murphy show?
Just the whatever.
For all the events in the ontology?
I mean,
Murphy show you all the events in the ontology.
we can show you any combination, right? We could say, okay, select 5 events, and we pick a few objects for you together. For example. I mean,
Don't you
my
need to
point
be able
is
to
like,
see them and list them and debug them and understand where they're coming from?
what would you change about it?
Uh,
I mean,
I
I
would-
think
I
I
would-
think having a list without a lot of semantics is fine.
Yeah.
If you know what they are. I'm not sure that this is like a primary way for me to go to look at events.
I think it depends what you want to do by looking at event. I agree with you. If what you want to do is look at a process, then it doesn't make sense to look at a list of different event types. Makes sense to look at an IP, or it makes sense to look at an instance explorer.
So when do we think someone's
Basically, if you want to determine that one of your dynamic events should be a permanent event, or if you need to,
Oh, why do we keep those distinctions, right? So if we do the work that we're talking about with Lewis, right, we don't need to distinguish between the dynamic events and whatever.
something has to have a binding. So what do you bind to?
Just the table.
Sure, but what gets bound to the table? What gets bound to the table? Like there could be 400 different event types in a single table. I don't want you to have to model them.
Yeah, so what I think we can show instead here is a list of tables that are creating events. That's it.
A list of tables that are creating events, and then what list of different events?
These are the 20 events that are coming out of this table.
Yeah,
If we're saying that the primary property is event sources, right, like event source tables.
I mean, functionally, that's what this order lifecycle event is an event.
So calling events is not the ideal thing.
That's fair. We could call it an event source.
But if we bring in something different, which is here's the table that generates 20 events.
Yep.
That might be a cleaner way to show this. And it also lets us then view that events. Yes. That would then let me do class it.
Yeah, mostly what I'm going to capture here is that you should be able to immediately see all the events that are in your system, whether they're dynamic or explicit. And you should be able to see the ones that you've grouped up manually as well. These are all kinds of events. But yeah, sure, I think there's no problem at all with saying skip the superclass type.
I mean, I want to just the number of things you need to make it like update or.
Yeah. I mean, my suspicion is that that's a relatively small change in the number, because the event classes are really small. The number of events. You can certainly clean it up by removing that layer.
Well, we don't need you to specify that when you create it.
Yep, you're right. So we could, instead of having that as a parent and child, you could just say, what's the event source for this event?
On the table.
Yeah.
Then we don't have a bind data stuff either.
Well, I mean, that is what I think.
Just the table starting there.
Yeah, the thing there is, do you want to inherit all of the attributes and relationships from the parent?
I think then like say, filter out some attributes or whatever, but it's like use the operations. Yeah. It's like order created. I don't want this attribute on order created.
Yes. But for your dynamic events, you haven't done it before yet.
So then
You still have to decide what columns you want somehow.
we probably show something which is like, you know, dynamic event, and it's like, here's the 20 events that are getting created by this based on the data that we see. So
I mean, that's exactly what this is. Like this is your dynamic event generator. These are the dynamic events that have been created.
yeah, but this one lets you manage each of them individually, edit them each of them individually. Is that what we want? If it's dynamic, this list will be changing, or things might get added to this list, you just want to change it.
Yeah. Why is that bad?
Not bad, I'm just like, what kind of, what would we want you to be able to edit? Like here, you're saying, I guess we're adding some names and descriptions to it.
Yep.
Is there other things you can change on it? Or just-
I mean, you could map it to a process model, for example.
Please add something
On
to
the-
this, or do you think that it's added?
I'm just writing that down.
I understand.
Yeah.
Like, you value shows up. And then it-
Right.
What happens to it? What default way?
Yeah, exactly. You need default behavior that you're going to deal with dynamic events.
Yeah, then we'll, yeah, I think if we use this and we focus it. Then it's like, yeah, how to map a new value that shows up to an event type, something like that, but it's a match from what was.
So then you're still with, now what you're binding then is to an event source instead of to, so you've got some new concept, which is an event source that has children that are events.
Yeah.
Which is fine, like it's functionally the same thing, it just.
It's just, yeah, just
you can profile them out.
Just differentiate the event type from the raw too.
Yeah, so essentially you would add some new event type in, so then source.
And especially since we have a lot of event sources, which are actually object tables, not events.
That is true. Yeah.
Of other reasons.
Which reminds me of one of the other questions that we had, which is field extensions.
Sorry, what's the conclusion on the events?
I don't think everyone's room is read.
There's going to be a kickoff next week.
There's some homework. Maybe yeah, we can send out the link and maybe you guys take a look. And because it is a page.
Yeah, I think events is a really important part also for the creation flow. I think it's getting a bit complex.
What is contemplated in this sort of events V2 talk and non-figs is a very dramatic change to how to create an event. But I think it has not been shared yet.
V2.
It's the end-to-end events.
That one, yeah.
Okay, so maybe given time, we'll send the link. You guys take a look for tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good. This was
The general. We probably would have loved where there's a lot of source data that looks like this, right?
Yep.
Logs, activity tables, sustain, initiatives.
Yep.
Today, there's a relatively small exercise to say model that type. And so what is contemplated is not skipping that step entirely. It's open up your Mobi, directly populate your Mobi from raw data.
Love it.
So that skips all that explanation that you're trying to do to teach people what they need to do. Model.
Yep.
That said, it pushes that complexity to modeling time.
Right.
So we don't get rid of it entirely. You still need to do some mapping, you still need to unpack fields and stuff like that. But you can see the results of what you do every time you make the change. So arguably the feedback on what you've been doing. This is a copy for a bunch of things.
Should I show it to you now? Do you remember let me see if I can find that presentation.
There's some version of this that we had tested out. Nice.
Let me see if I can.
What is old is new?
And some of the ideas are good ideas.
Good ideas just keep coming back.
Just before their time.
Yeah, totally.
Where we were in a position to go.
Yeah, I get it.
I have a long tail of documents of like, remember in 2000.
It's a good idea then. It's still a good idea.
Yeah. You didn't build it, so now it's our problem to do today.
Yep. You're pulling something up, Aaron?
Trying to find it.
But I think at the core, I still think you do need a list of what are the events and what are the
I think it's just that we need to add some elements in that you want to do with and newly created dynamic stuff.
Yeah, so maybe even make them a little more obvious what things they are here. Like I could make the event type say dynamic event instead of just and I think that would help. It's nice to be able to see subtypes. It's nice to be able to directly link to subtypes. But with worrying about what parent or see just the subtype directly in that field.
Links to objects from this field.
Yeah, that gets unbounded though. So within the event itself,
Link to unbounded events.
I mean, they can have any number of object relationships they want. They need to have one.
Yeah, that's sure the primary.
Fair enough.
I mean, I don't think we actually have, I don't think too many people are finding these to lots of objects. The reason I say that is then something like a MOPI showed all these as five. That's not actually sources types that touch the same objects.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
You need to stop.
No, I don't think I do. You can just share it without me. I'll stop here.
Yeah, this was the idea. So it's the idea we had back then, new whatever, and this is your MOPI, and you add the objects. You add objects. You add. Sorry, I don't know what I'm clicking. I click on this. I add two objects. I added events. Then I added the relationship between these two. Then I continue add relationships. I continue add right. I add a new object from my source data, something like that. I added some new events. I am adding the relationships, okay, to all these things. And at the end, I click sync objects and events, something like that. And this will create, this creates 4 types, like 2 new objects will be created, 2 new events will be created, relationships, perspective.
I think this one is closer to that experience of drawing something on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
Drawing to the process. The one in the current event doc is slightly different. If you go back to your log here, you wouldn't have to explicitly create purchase. Those things would not be
Leaving the table, yes. Yes, I'm aligned. I'm just.
Yeah, this one I think is a great version of the like I do something on the whiteboard. How do I turn it into other events? Which was a common use case for sure.
Yep. Again. Okay, so yeah, we can change what things show up in that table, and that's fairly non-issue. All right, the next somewhat probably controversial thing is what are knowledge models? How do they show up here? So the way that I imagine them is basically I've got people join graphs, which is how I decompose perspectives in my head. And so people join graphs are just join graphs. Particularly shitty examples here. There, it's a join graph, and it has a bunch of dependent assets. So
Connected to a graph.
yeah, marks. fixing mark data is very painful. So then you can just see all of the things that are using the same join graph. You can also look at it in a cross-cutting way and say, okay, show me all the metrics, filter them by whatever is useful, filter them by, so that you can easily find them. You could have them written in SQL, or you could have them written in PQL. One limitation of writing these in SQL right now is that I think we built PQL to be a dashboarding language that has cross-cutting filters, and I don't think we have a way today of making SQL queries respect filters that way. So that I think is a gap if we want to really support SQL-based filters. But
Yeah, you can
otherwise,
still
the notion is there.
You can still filter SQL use, it's very rare.
Correct. But so you don't have a standalone filter. You have a, like you just write it into the query. The thing is that's not responsive to changes that you make in a dashboard, which may or may not be a problem depending on what you actually want to do. For example, if you're trying to feed some AI agent, that may be totally irrelevant and you don't care. I added virtual tables as sort of a catch-all for event logs and building whatever table you want to build, because I think they're fundamentally the same thing in knowledge model. You're using some people to define a table that you could, in principle, then persist to the database.
I think we still want other knowledge models.
Why?
Because
Why?
that's what it is.
Why wouldn't you just have a process mining tool use the if not? I understand.
Those things. Then if we want to show them to you here, so you think.
I mean, I don't think it's a problem at all to add extra kinds of things that you want to show here, but I mean, it's not clear to me why them logs are particularly special as opposed to any other kind of table that you can do.
We also want to show you PAM, the other process.
Isn't PAM? I don't understand what you want to put there.
We want to show you here are other entities you can create that take advantage of your knowledge. So like we want to encourage you to basically create a bunch of
I guess it's fine. Like you can have any set of kinds of entities that you think are worth calling out at the top level here. Just shove them in the list, same as everything else. They all depend on people joining that from the same way. Sure. The way I showed them here is grouped by kind, but I'll go to a taxonomy view eventually here. Because I don't think there's anything particular that says it's most useful to group them by kind. I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
What are the options that we're exploring?
I'll get there, but some obvious ones are process, package, kind, possibly creator.
Custom labels.
And custom, but sure. Well, let me get there. Like I'm not ready to talk about taxonomy yet.
Before you get there, I realize that we are not doing that, right? Like we are not doing metrics as separate nodes in the.
What? No, I'm not blind.
Every day is different. New day.
I think that it's totally reasonable to explore those options and decide whether it's most useful to users how they want to navigate them.
Yeah, and we explored that option, and we checked how would it look, how much work it would be to have metrics separate entities, calculated attributes separate entities, filters separate entities, and we figured out that it doesn't make any sense to have to maintain all these different nodes separately. Just
What is it about it that doesn't make sense?
you will have hundreds. If you have an object, imagine you will have like event logs on top of the event logs, and these things, it's like you storing at your refrigerator 1 spoon of olive oil. Instead of pasta, you store it in like 500 each 100 gram, 100 I don't know. It's like storing in your home in your refrigerator 500 gram of water. You know, because
More.
because
1 teaspoon at a time.
because that's what knowledge model has, right? It takes let's say your object is oil. In the knowledge model, you have 1 spoon of oil.
Why wouldn't you just stick a filter on here that says which, since these are dependent on a people join graph, why wouldn't you just filter by join graph and use that as taxonomy that you care about?
No, what I'm saying is like the node, you have to actually store it, right? Like you have to. Yeah.
I mean, I think philosophically, I agree with you that 100%. I think from a technical engineering cost, And it just doesn't, I don't know if it makes sense.
As in.
For what we get for doing it.
As in, it's expensive to create a new entity for each one.
No, sorry, like actually like doing the work to do this. We already have a knowledge model. And so,
Yeah.
so to decide to not use a knowledge model and go a different route is a big engineering cost. To make sure that there's a.
I get that.
Yeah.
I am not making a claim that tomorrow we should go and
Okay.
do something there. I just don't understand what the value of having them, like, if I were building from scratch, would I have a knowledge model? I don't understand what I would do with a knowledge model.
I agree with you.
I know I'm not building from scratch, so there's path dependency here. And so if it makes sense to keep it for some amount of time or forever because there's not good ROI for changing it, fine.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it. Like, if to me, a knowledge model looks like a group of assets that are related by depending on the same people joined with.
For me, it's more like a recipe.
Yeah.
Of like, which is, it's not like you don't, it's not a group of assets, which means like, so like you get, so yeah, please.
Yeah, he's not arguing with you that there shouldn't be a grouping mechanism for these things. What he's saying is that having it so, like, putting them all in a knowledge model and such, that means they're on different pages, right? As opposed to just having like a label or something that you can then use to filter these things.
It's having grouping mechanisms that applies to half the things on this list is true.
But the way
Where do the SQL metrics go?
so what the difference is, what I think is like, for example, when I see a PQL statement or like a calculator which says case when, right? Like, oh, this happens and this, I don't see it, it's the same as like an attribute in the object. It's like the object is like the olive oil, and I just took like a spoon of that olive oil. That's what I need for this KPI. And that doesn't have to live at that level, at like this high level, but it's part of this recipe.
But isn't the point that we want to do shared knowledge?
No, I think the point is like, if you pull out metrics from that recipe, as you call it, like, I think it's, in your understanding, it's one SQL join graph that has all of these things.
I'm saying is any number of people join graphs that each have their own set of dependencies. But if what I want to know is how have you defined calculate sales tax? I want to know all the different ways that someone's calculated create sales tax across all of the knowledge models. And how am I going to know that other than traversing the knowledge models if I don't have a list of all the metrics?
Let us answer this question differently. Would we want to show a list of knowledge models on this page? Let's assume that we're trying to keep the current world. So these 4 buckets turn into just a list of knowledge models.
I mean,
There's 4 buckets.
the things that people
Oh,
join
no,
graphs metrics.
shared knowledge.
Assume I replace that section with list of knowledge models.
How many would there be?
And you wouldn't be able to see you wouldn't be able to see all your metrics across all knowledge models? Or like,
No, I would do the same thing I do today, right? I can click on a knowledge model and I can see all the stuff in that knowledge model.
But only in one knowledge model at a time.
Do we think this makes sense?
I don't think so.
Like, we don't disagree that we can have metrics there. I'm just saying that the node is not the metric.
What I want to answer first is, does the knowledge model as a layer below the package, right, provide useful information? Do we think that like there's value in having the package and then the separate multiple knowledge models per package?
Personally, from what I've experienced, I think yes, because for example, in one knowledge model, I can create my DPO. In that DPO, in that knowledge model, I have all the calculated attributes because it's not one long PQL statement, right? I have my calculate attributes, I have my the event log that I need for this thing, etc., etc. And on top of it, I create my one metric, let's say the DPO.
The others, like objects, events related to that.
Sorry?
So like DPO right? Is that what you're thinking? Or what? Like, why would I not have, say, objects and events and relationships in this? Right? Like, why is the width of that that like bucket not like AR or AP?
So if you ask me, you will, let's say you have a label AP. That label AP goes to the objects, goes to the events, and goes to the knowledge model. And then you have, this is the in that label AP, you get all the three elements that you need, right?
But why do you need the knowledge model then? Why can't you just label all the metrics and all the content in the knowledge model with that label? And then you can filter by it easily.
Like, are we getting a lot of value by adding the second layer?
But what I think is coming is because like you will never, like, let's say in the knowledge model you have 10 things, right?
Yeah.
That you would never want to manage all the permissions of these 10 things separately, or the dependencies of these 10 things separately.
Packages are for.
And now we are going again, same philosophical question.
But I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
We're talking philosophically, not no limitations here.
yeah, so for me, the package, it's more like the package has nodes, right? Like objects, events, have all these permissions, etc., etc. If you will now go and define, if we will ask our users to give permissions, dependencies to every PQL statement, because that's what we say, I feel it's too much.
Why would we say that? Like we would just say it at the package level.
Like, okay, let me put it differently. Like what we are saying is like we have a package, and the package has objects. This is a node, has events. What you are saying is like, why don't we? And a node has dependencies, has permissions, has all these things, right?
Package has those things.
Today, there are no permissions on an asset.
Okay, but at some point of time we will implement it. But
Dependencies exist. Yeah, well, but I'm not sure that is. Just because we might add permissions at the asset level doesn't mean that we need to add permissions for a record.
the way I see it is like, it's like, why don't we take the attributes of an object and make it also, how is it called, a node?
Specific field extensions exist as essentially doing that already.
Yes, we can take the granularity and make it up to description. Description is also not, but does it make sense?
So what I'm saying is we need to just, what is a reasonable way to do this? Right? So we're fairly confident that saying one pig that all of you need to fight over is right? Like, multiple teams working on the same pig can collaborate. If all we give you is sort of one giant package that all of you need to fight over, right? So we're all aligned on that. Right? Like all of us sharing the same packages in bracket, right? So the question that we want to sort of go towards saying, okay, what is the right granularity you should break up?
Do we need more layers?
How many pieces do we need? How many pieces should people have? Do you want one per team, one per use case, one per whatever? Right? And then the question that's relevant for this is, let's assume that we have multiple packages per pick, right? That's sort of what we started out today, right? We get your data pool. I'm chopping that up into 5 packages, 10 packages in the same node. If I have that level of ability to segment out the graph, then I'm getting extra benefit from splitting up my knowledge.
It's like, why, like an object has attributes, has descriptions, etc., right?
Sure. But what is your description for knowledge? What is the knowledge? Sure. And you get your analysis.
What is the description of the object?
Today, the object is a table that you can follow the life cycle for events.
Yes. And for the knowledge model, I would say this is the group of PQL formulas that you need to define a specific metric or whatever.
So, let's use.
Yeah, it's like the same. It's like the attributes are a group of, like the attributes in an object are a group of transformations, SQL transformations, right? Like the mapping. For the knowledge model is like a group of PQL formulas that live together. Like
Most of the transformations produce all of the attributes there. Most of the transformations output all of the attributes of an object. You don't have a separate transformation for each attribute.
Yes, okay. You could do like the reason why in PQL they don't do it in one transformation is because of the modularity, right? They could do also one PQL formula, one huge transformation, right? it's fine. But the reason why they do it into smaller pickle formulas and like they store things. This is my
I think we need to explain to somebody why they're creating packages. And so what's our description for why should you create two knowledge models for that?
so first of all, like why do you create two packages?
Two different teams.
Two different things.
Or two different, groups of people who want to work on them independently.
Otherwise, it's groups of people
Yeah.
working independently.
Okay, same. So I say you can like inside there in there you have like people. Two people can work on two objects, right? In that package. Yeah. In the same with like the knowledge model, two people can create two different knowledge models, and one works on DPO, another one works on the other use case, or another KPI or another thing that they want to do.
Sure, but if they were separate entities that they could work on, the knowledge models forcing them to share.
And no, they don't have
I
to.
mean, the alternative version of this, right, is that metrics and KPIs are split up individually, right? So I just add a metric to my package, right? So the question of multiple people working at the same time doesn't make sense. Because in the other model, they would actually be independent. So if I create a KPI, it's completely independent. So two people working in the same package is not a good example of why the knowledge model should exist.
No, I didn't say it's a good example why the knowledge model should exist. It's like the same way that two people, like you work on invoice, you work on customer. The same way I work on DPO, you work on like on-time payment.
Oh, there for knowledge models to be first class systems, there needs to be something that ties together entities
Yes.
that should be different while you're splitting onto your packages.
So why would you split it into knowledge models and not split it into packages?
I've answered many times, but it's fine.
I mean, today people are splitting knowledge models based on multiple teams that like are working independently. Right? There are a lot of uses of the knowledge model today that are really things that you would like to segment your whole package based on. But we only give you this.
Today, the main use case in knowledge models are like perspective. Like even if when we ask Tuller, they create one knowledge model per perspective. That's the main use case of the knowledge model. Yeah.
The perspective here is joint graph. So you can already do that by just looking at the dependencies of joint graph.
How is that related now?
Perspective is joint graph.
But they're using perspective to indicate like use case.
How is that different though? Like it's the knowledge model is built on a perspective. A perspective provides the joint graph, and everything in the knowledge model is dependent on that joint graph.
Here's a valid reason to segment out your like here's everything related to my AR use case.
Sure.
And so if that was the argument, then we would say, okay, the perspective plus the CAM should be in its own little bucket together.
Right, like, kind of already is. You've got the dependency, everything's dependent on the joint graph is already an implicit one.
Yeah. Today I can create 5 CAMs for.
Because yes.
And so if what we thought was, hey, we should tie these together,
Yep.
then we should tie them together explicitly.
You can do that. You could just label them.
And sometimes you can even go, it's not perspective, but you can go event loop level because one perspective can have like 3 event loops, for example. Then you might want to create one knowledge model per event loop. It's up to the user.
It's like there's too many layers of hierarchy. And I don't understand what the extra value of telling somebody, hey, you need to create. Why should I create it all? At some level, I mean, we can make that call. And you can probably test it out and see what works in practice. But hey,
We need to be able to sustain ourselves when you create knowledge model versus creating. Which I thought are clear. Right, at the moment, the package is broken up by team, and maybe we add this extra layer. It's just larger kind of metrics. But is that what we are we confident that we think that that's the right segmentation?
I didn't hear the last
Yeah, I
one.
didn't follow what you said.
I mean, so I think at the package level, we're pretty clear that we want you to segment packages based on team or groups of people that are. Right, so every time you open a group of people who don't want to talk to some other people in your team, create a new package so they can work in them. Right, so that there's a clear boundary for creating separate
Yeah.
packages.
So our use case, to our user, whatever it is.
So package is basically the way on how you organize your working,
Stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Working.
your operations of how do you build this.
For example, I was in a call yesterday with Arkema, right? They're they use they use Accenture as the partner, and what they did is like they worked on two use cases. One worked on knowledge model A, the other one worked on knowledge model B without breaking without interrupting each other, like without blocking each other.
And I think that is much more, that's a use case for two packages in the new world. Right, because you actually, I don't want segmentation just in the knowledge model. They also want segmentation at the event level.
No, I think the data model was the same. The data model was the same, and the only thing that was the only difference was
the new world, like, it's still right according across this package.
But so what you're telling me is like I would create one package for like one KPI.
No, not a package for Accenture, one package for the internal team.
These both were Accenture, right? Or
Two different
Accenture
treasure
team
packages.
was Accenture team too.
Like package is an arbitrary bucket of stuff. Like you can put whatever you want.
And these packets will have the same. These packets will have only metrics and only.
And
Here's a package. Here's a package. It's got invoices.
But they don't want to.
Events,
They don't want to replicate this thing, right?
So
So
they don't
What's
actually
your-
replicate it. They just, whichever team is building it, let's say.
let's look at this Arkema example, right? So they want the same objects, the same events. They just want different PKI formulas. Okay. So in which according to your design, in which package these objects exist? Package. Let's say we have package 1 and package 2. Accenture.
Between the is there two.
Both of them they create.
I assume they're not both creating the same ones, right? So team one created something else, team two created something.
Yes, apparently.
Right, so in that level, package one includes the set of events that team one created. Package two includes the set of events that team two created. They both live in the same data. So when I query them, I get the union of all the events that are created across team one and team two.
And then, so in that case, you will have what if one team needs something from the other team.
Things just called team two.
Yeah, I think this is I don't think this will be how our customers will use it. That they will break it down into maybe one object, one picker.
Why do you think that you did one thing per package? I don't understand where that's coming from.
Because this is the description, right? You are building a use case, or like you're building something, and you create one package for that small thing, right?
So meaningful unit of work, whatever.
Right, it's not like, I mean, you could create one package for entity if you want to, but it's pretty expensive.
But that's what you're saying, because of
No,
I think we're very clearly saying that each package is tied to a group of people that's working on something. And so for most, for most people, it's like 3 teams or 5 teams or
And-
5 use cases.
And let's say this team has 3 people, right? What I'm telling you is like they did it like that. And then inside this package, they created separate knowledge models to build the different PQL formulas.
It's not building knowledge models. Sorry, saying that entities should be separate. If the entities were separate, then they just build their entities.
And then they can deploy independently and not have to worry about it.
There's history for each independent. I mean, the argument for knowledge models has to be these things are logically grouped in some way. They're related for some purpose. Therefore, it makes sense for them to have like a common life cycle and common editing and common thing that I would show, right? Like when I consume it, I should show you the knowledge model because it provides useful information. Right? If that's not true, then the argument, to have that wrong, right? Because the data is not providing proven criteria, just happens to be this technical that we have because and because we did have the ability to like use packages.
But that's what I was trying to do. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Like the DPO, it's like, for example, if you take a DPO, it's like 5 calculate data builds, 1 event log, 2 KPIs. All these separate don't make any sense. And then the question is like, should we put a label or should we put a knowledge model to it? Like
the DPO, if we're said like, why should like metrics filters be in the DPO knowledge, but not like the field extension for like DPO is gonna have
sorry,
so the DPO is gonna have it's payable outside your invoice because like there's an invoice field that corresponds to the DPO, right? Yeah. Like how old is your invoice or how long have you been? Why would we not say put the field exception for that DPO, that column in that same bucket? Because that column is related to this use case. Right. If we were to say, look, the good here is use case, right? Actually, column direction algorithms also makes sense to both. Right. Like so, like what is not obvious is that why should only a subset of the semantic entities be in the knowledge model? Right. It's fine if anything can be a knowledge model. These things are grouped a certain way. It also is reasonable if we say, okay, all of them are independent, and you just sort of pick whatever subset makes sense. But in the current world, the CAM only covers half the entities on the list, right? It's only these 4 or 5, right? Like the process mining related plus metrics filters, right? Right. So like those are the things that are in the current knowledge model, right?
if you think that you have also the data, it contains everything.
Yeah, right. You see the data is related to DPO.
No. Oh, okay, maybe I misunderstood your question.
What I'm saying is that today, a lot of the semantic entities are related to the knowledge model. Some of them are.
What do you mean semantic entities?
The other one.
Objects are there, right? The knowledge model. Today,
Yeah, but they wouldn't make sense in say a DPO knowledge. Right? Like which object you could include in a DPO knowledge. So like if I create a knowledge model for days payable outstanding, what object am I putting in there?
it's like according to the join graph that you will select, because it's like if we look at today's world, the moment you create the knowledge model, you select the join graph. This join graph has like 10 objects. I don't know. These are already part of it, right?
They're referring to something that's outside the knowledge model, because they say these are objects and events that you define somewhere else. And I'd say you can look at them from inside your knowledge model, but they're not defined in the knowledge model. Like, is invoice defined in DPO or is invoice defined somewhere else?
Because you probably have a separate, like, I don't know, what's the sister DPO metric, like on-time payment rate, right? So is invoice can't be in both DPO knowledge model and the on-time payment rate knowledge model and the AR knowledge model. And, right, it's gonna be as much explicit. Right, like one of them is the right, is the place where the invoices.
Canonical definition of a thing that has to do with somewhere.
So all of these can pull data from the invoice, which is what you're saying, right? All of these metrics depend on the invoice, but that's not the whole of the invoice.
No, it's not.
So like, so you know, the rest of these entities don't sort of logically fit with that sort of use case.
So if you want to see everything that's related to DPO, essentially you're tagging, or you're looking at the things that the elements of DPO are dependent on, or you're otherwise expanding the graph beyond what's in your knowledge model.
Yes, that's how it also works today.
So what's the point of having a knowledge model as opposed to just applying the same level to all the things that are in the knowledge model?
So I can't follow, sorry.
Well, you're grouping half the things under a knowledge model, and the rest of the things that are also related are not grouped under the knowledge model. So why wouldn't you just do the same thing for all the things? Either group all of them under the knowledge model or group none of them under the knowledge model and tag them.
Because I think they have different nature, right? Like they're doing different things today. Like why would they?
But tomorrow they're much more similar. They're all just metadata configuration at runtime.
Yeah, but one is mapping of like your data. The other one is logic all on top of your data. Like it's like, why do we have objects and events? Why don't we have only objects?
Well, does that distinction matter?
I don't know, like it's very philosophical question. Like
Is it?
the way I understand is like you're asking me, why do we have objects and events? Why we don't just have objects?
No, we're giving you the concept that you can apply to any of the entities in this package. Right? We're saying yes, you can create a knowledge model, but some things have to live in there and other things can't. Right? And we haven't really said why should something live in the knowledge model and something shouldn't be in there. Right. So I mean that's what I think is hard for us to define right now is that we have a subset of entities that are in the knowledge model, but there's not a particular reason why this subset is in it and the other subset is not.
I think it's a bit like from a customer point of view, and correct me if I understand it right, is that there's an association with a perspective because that's like a scope or a definition of a certain use case. So you attribute certain calculations to that specific use case. So it's a bit of an organizational construct. Going forward with when you have multiple, you can create different packages. Then is that still required? Is that still grouping required? Would it be still meaningful to provide such a group of knowledge entities, so to say, just for somebody to organize how they associate certain calculations?
I mean, just so we have some. Imagine that we said knowledge models exist, but they're one-to-one with perspective, for example. Or knowledge models exist, but they're one-to-one with package. So for each package, we just define one knowledge model and all metrics and whatever are inside. Right?
Yeah,
Do we think that breaks certain use cases, okay, where it makes it harder for somebody to organize?
from the user's perspective, I think when you do that, when you do one knowledge model per perspective, then the knowledge model becomes very difficult to manage because like all the benefits you get from like a smaller knowledge model, like you have like the versions, you have everything of that asset. Now you get lost, you lose it, and then you are managing a lot of things in a YAML in a text.
In this world, packages can be very small too, right? Packages are pretty lightweight.
Yeah, so if you are telling me that the package will be, I don't know, maybe one perspective, or like even less, okay, maybe that makes sense. But I don't know I don't know how customers will use packages. So far,
I think what you're saying is that if package is big, then you need something smaller. And if package is small, then you need a way to manage a lot of packages.
and if you ask me, if package is per team, each team has at least 2-3 perspectives from when I talk to customers.
So package per team implies package big. So you're
Yeah.
saying I want to be able to sub-select and sub-organize things within the
Like I don't
folders within the package.
yeah, like it's like I haven't seen a customer that has like I don't know like are really using Celonis, right? That has like one data model or like that a team is using only one data model and the other team. But even if you use like one data model can have like hundreds of objects and like
Yeah, but no one should do that.
sorry.
Like, no one should create that.
I'm just saying that what is actually there. I'm not saying
Like, if we're getting the ability to do stuff, then we need to explain. Why should you put 100 objects in a single package? What's the rationale for somebody doing that?
What logic should you have for how you decide to divide up your work, whether using packages or any other construct for grouping?
But I think there's having an option to group your
So remember,
knowledge.
today, right, if you think about the number of levels that are inside that package, a data model, data pool, then you have perspectives, knowledge models, folders.
What are folders for?
There's folders and packages.
What are they
Are
doing?
there folders?
They still need to group assets.
If there's already
Think like
folders
in
and
a computer
packages, then I
folder.
see even much.
I mean,
reason
then,
why.
because I don't think we've been discussing that.
There are folders and packages. Like if you look at the asset tree, there are folders.
but the folders they have like no properties at all. Like it's not the node.
It's just random organization. It seems like what you're
But
gonna.
My point is that
How do you,
my point is that within the current scheme that we have, we already have 6 organizational levels.
I think the only organizational pattern that we have today is the data model. That all the rest is just like some things that we have implemented.
But you were telling us that you need knowledge models as well as data models.
So if we look at the customers, how do they organize their thing? They have one perspective, like let's say in the PI graph, they have like 3 perspectives. Then most probably they will create 1 or 2 packages in Studio where they will create 1 or 2 knowledge models per perspective. And this will become like the base knowledge model for analysts to build on top of it. The rest, the labels and folders and so on are not really grouping anything. It's just like, okay, folder, archive, put everything there, folder, production, put there. They're not really grouping things today.
Right. So my point is that I want to get rid of things that people are.
Get rid of folders.
So if people are not using. Them,
Yeah.
If you're using it, done, you gave time. Let's set that as the part.
I mean, that's also how we defined it, right?
The perspective was not designed to be. It's designed to be.
That's an unfortunate side effect of it.
I mean, that was the way of,
Just created that. Right. The
Yeah.
challenge was that because perspectives got materialized, people had to make perspectives big enough that they were useful across a reasonably sized use case. So they got mapped onto.
yeah, but that's what I mean. It's an artifact of what we created.
Sure, but that's not a strong argument to say that the perspective is the right group to do it.
But the thing is that if we are going to allow dynamic perspectives, then that is going to be reflecting the smaller use cases in which you want to query. So actually it will start driving the scope and the thinking of grouping of
Sure.
entities.
But then there's a reason why we say, let's not have a separate knowledge model. Let's
People
match
doing that,
them-
and it's
match them onto one. Every time I create a join graph, I just have the knowledge. Matches, for example.
But so that could work. I just believe like from the conversations we had, like even for Duller, like when he wanted to migrate, there were cases that he wanted 2-3 knowledge models per join graph. It depends how big the join graph is. But I'm not saying
But so if we're not materializing it, then you can actually have copies of the same joint graph.
Yeah,
That you can
that's a bad answer to this question. Right? I think the better answer to this question is, okay, let's assume that he created three knowledge models per perspective. What was the logic for why they were split into 3 pieces? What was the third criteria?
So the way that I think he'll do it is because each knowledge model is a different development, a different use case for them.
So why would you package?
Yeah, again, I cannot, it's like we are going,
I
every time I
think
answer.
that cannot be really a hard thing to implement, like just have one package per use case. I think that's gonna be hard to push through, right? I mean, because we are also saying that your ontology, you get to view only that specific package. For everything else, you start importing and copying things.
There's a pretty expensive lifecycle of packages, so one package per use case is a hard track.
I'm 100% sure.
I don't think we should recommend that for this. I mean, unless use case here means like AR process. I'm sure.
I think we're talking,
If you're saying one package per TPO, I'd find that hard.
we're minimum, I think, like two perspectives, current perspectives per package.
I don't know. I think one per package is still like this AR has one package perspective, and for one package perspective without phase.
It's your assumption versus my assumption.
Also remember the knowledge models, a view can point to one knowledge model, right?
No, can you point to one?
Is that common?
So it doesn't make so much sense, right? Because like the filter propagation breaks.
Yeah. So that's also part of,
The primary use case is from a multiple views. It's like, I built this exact dashboard.
Yeah.
But I think we need to tighten up why we think someone's creating multiple knowledge models per package. And then.
Yeah. I think we should put a pin in this one. Like, I think as of today, we have knowledge models.
So do we see that, so in the current knowledge model, we have a bunch of entities which we feel belong together. Is that going to remain true, or can we break them apart and present them as?
I don't think breaking the separate is particularly.
We can do that anyway.
I think the reason I want us to have.
I mean, the question is also, do we want to see them all together all the time, or?
I think the technical part to refactor knowledge model radio is quite expensive. Not sure there's much justification for it. Right? So let's assume that will be fairly high. So try to smash our knowledge model. So the main question in my mind is, should we make knowledge models visible to customers and top of mind, say on this list as a primary entity that people care about? Or is it something that is a technical debt grouping mechanism that we're just hiding in the background because of history that we have? And the thing we want to show you here is metrics versus filters versus whatever, and you don't need this extra group layer alone. That is a question that we need to answer on the knowledge side to say, because if I'm going to make it front and center for you, I need to teach you what that concept is. I need to tell you when should you create one or multiple. Right, so it is introducing a new entity in the primary life cycle for every customer. So we need to explain what it is, when to create it, how often you should create them, et cetera, et cetera.
Why do you say it's a new entity? Because
Wait, every time
For a new customer.
every time the customer fires up their package, we have to teach them what to do.
But could we not keep that? Like, I mean, you also mentioned at some point about a tagging concept, right? So if we could have a hybrid version, which is you could just have a flat list,
I
or.
don't think you're answer to too many organization of this, just to create it.
So what I don't mean to say to create tagging. What I mean is that we could live with a version which is hybrid, that for those customers who have built a knowledge model, that could be a mechanism to filter a big list, which looks like the knowledge model today. And for the others who have not created a knowledge model,
Yeah, we have to
could be
decide,
optional.
should the knowledge model be part of the product? Like, as Jonathan said, we can decide if we want to show it. If it's useful and something we want to teach people about, it should be a thing that we show. If it's a technical debt thing that we have because of history, then we can still keep it in the background. You don't need to refactor everything. But should there be a thing called knowledge model on the menu here, or
Otherwise, you would have to create a different UI to present each of the entities within a knowledge model. How do you present that?
already just
No, I mean, show a list of metrics versus filters. People will understand.
I think from this altitude, you do want to see on a per entity basis, right? And you want to that to span all knowledge models. That's the point of this thing in the first place, isn't it? But I mean,
so you know, I think very tactfully, our decisions are: should we show a list of knowledge models on this page,
right,
or not? Right. So, like, basically, do I need to explain knowledge models to you as a primary entity? If we do, then let's have a clear definition of how many should you have, when should you have them. The alternatives to do that, which I think is possible, which we should consider. One, which is we tie it to an existing entity. So we tie it to a perspective, we tie it to package, or whatever, and we say by default you only have one of these, and you can add a second one.
How would you do the decision when you don't know how users will use the package? Like, you don't know how users will use packages.
Sure, you're telling them to use packages.
No, you think that they will use it this way, but users can use one package for everything, for example.
I mean, that's their choice. If they choose to do that, then great. But
Why not like
teach them the right way?
I mean, my question is how many concepts do I need to put in front of them for them to understand to use the product filters? So I'm saying, yes, I need to show them a package, but they need to understand what a package is on a critical path. It's not clear to me that I need to show them a knowledge model on the critical path to use the product.
That's
right. So that's what I want to sense is if it's valuable, every customer should know about it. Let's put it there and explain. If we're saying, hey, we can get away without showing it, it's only needed for certain customers. Like when you, for example, you can say, okay, when you create your 10th metric, then I'm going to show you the knowledge model because I think, man, you might have something enough things that you can do. And like we're going to get to 7 knowledge models, right? Just add that for sake of argument, right? So like when you reach a certain level,
and that's how it is today as well.
Prompt you to do. No, it's knowledge models in your face. Right? I mean, it shows up. Like you cannot go and see a metric until you look at a knowledge model. When you save a KPI, we prompt you about the knowledge model.
Yeah, but you can build your view, you can build your aggregations, everything without the knowledge model.
You have to point it to a knowledge model.
Yeah, but like it's not like if you create a package, it's hidden somehow.
It tells you that you created it. When you save your KPI, it shows up. Right. So again, my point is that if we can get away without exposing more concepts to users, the more things we don't need to explain. So like, let's decide whether knowledge model needs to be something that's in that or can we just show the things that are knowledge models? I think measures and filters easier for people to understand. Right. And so like that I think it's value that show like a knowledge model, which I don't think if you talk to any new customer who says you know what a knowledge model is, why would they have any idea? If you asked them what a filter was, I don't know if anyone would be able to write PQL the first time, but I'm sure like I'll tell you, okay, well, I think it's supposed to do this. It probably apply some filter to a query, change it up the ones, right? Like those are intuitive things that people understand. Yeah, whether someone knows the difference between metric and KPI, debatable. I'm not sure that is.
Is there a difference?
You guys know what's the.
What was the question?
I've never seen a metric and a KPI.
Letters.
Okay.
No, literally.
the visibility of a knowledge model does matter a bit because you're saving multiple entities into one file. There is a frustration, which means that it makes the management side really difficult. You can't say, like, I create a knowledge model, and you go in and you create a KPI in there. We might be able to do a search for creator, but currently it's on the creator of the knowledge model. So if you go in and search for your KPI and you want to filter by creator in the KPI section, you're not going to see the thing that you created, right? So I think hiding knowledge models, if they are still existing in the background, might make some behavior.
Why do we need knowledge models, not just a folder? If we have folders and packages already, like create a folder, create a source folder and Theo's folder, and off we go.
I mean, if if the real win of the knowledge model is that it's a way of you grouping common things together, then yeah, I think
Yeah, fine, make
that's ways of doing that.
one-to-one with the folder, okay. I just, I think we're all saying the same thing, right? Which is, many of us don't understand what the value to a user is of this new concept. Aaron is saying, I think this is a valuable concept to users, and we should make a decision about that. Aaron is PM there, so on stage, it's
He's in
I
charge.
think we did the decision like 1 month ago, but it's fine. When we discussed it,
What we discussed is that it's not a tenable thing to do right now. And we
So what we
punted
said
it.
is we can't really get rid of it. Right.
we said that we will also observe the users because users can use one, can, yeah.
Yeah, but we also said that we also weren't talking about in the context of having OCDM
What changed?
concepts in the
What
same
changed
page.
since the last time is that we're making OCD concepts and we're letting you packages.
Yeah.
So those two things are different.
Yeah.
Than the last time we decided.
And then my assumption, the best way to validate and get the best decision for this, if we see that users create very small packages, right? And
I think that's wrong, though, because it's expensive to create.
can I finish this?
Well, yeah, but if you create packages and they're expensive, then it's not a test to say, is it useful to create packages? It's a test of how expensive is it to create
I
packages.
think we're getting at that, do we need another way to manage and organize
That's what I'm trying to
knowledge?
say.
Like, are the packages going to be big or small to be able to decide how
Yes.
do we organize
I
knowledge?
have no clue how the packages would look like. The packages would look, we might have 10 perspectives. The packages might have maybe two objects with a relationship. If that's the case, then I agree with you. Maybe we don't need knowledge models and let's decompose it. But if we see that the customers will have huge packages, similar size like today, I think having the knowledge model brings a lot of value because they can manage these PQL formulas that are related together. They don't have to do a separate everything.
Why don't we? Because today you can only have one package. So we're in a mode where you have to have.
No, you can have multiple parts. If we ignore OCTM right now and we just say data model in Studio,
It's like OCDM, right? Today in OCDM, the package is like that. So by definition, because you can't break up your OCDM. So let us see how are people using knowledge models right now, right? Because we have an example of the big package case out in the wild right now. So how many knowledge models are people creating for OCDM? Why don't we look up that number first and then decide?
Yeah, totally. And we have a specific example from Duller. They have around 15 knowledge models. Last time I remember, right?
I don't know.
Something.
Let's look this up. Then let's use that as because this tells us the large package case, right? Like I think everyone agrees.
And would you also say that it's not a good, we're also not in a good place with having a lot of objects, having this many objects in a single package.
So, right. My hesitation is not about, so like, is an internal knowledge segmentation useful? My concern is that I can't organize my other entities by knowledge.
I agree.
So to be clear, right, if our conclusion is people are still creating these giant package things and they need some internal organization, it's also quite reasonable that our answer is, okay, we promote knowledge model as the internal organization technique. And for the things that are in the knowledge model, they operate as today. And we say, let's just add some label to the objects and events that matches the knowledge model. And it's a label and we use it for organization purposes. So you can say, okay, this object is related to this use case. In some cases, it's treated as a label. In some cases, it's actually nested in the object, but I can organize every entity here by knowledge model.
But right. Another thing that I don't know why it's clear to me, but it's not clear to you is that one PQL formula is not as important. Let's say count of object or column is not as important as the object, right? Because what you're saying is like, hey, a count dot table dot column, it should be a node, and it should, and for me that's like, that's too much for something so small to be a node.
What does node mean here?
A node of the semantic layer, or node of the, like, for example, object.
I mean, I think we built like customized per metric. We show you pages based on metrics. Like people track history for it. It's like the things that we put on business KPIs and stuff. I'm also convinced that just because it's like a one-line PQL statement doesn't mean that's that.
It's almost like it's in my mind, it's the opposite. Like the underlying data isn't anything unless you write a metric for it that is telling you something. To me, the metric is almost the most important.
I think it's another important aspect is it reusable? Could you copy it and use it somewhere else?
Well, I think copying is different than reuse. Right?
Easier to
So, like,
standardize it.
Or
objects in the-
basically what the semantic layer is allowing you to do, right? Like, does it bubble up to that level that it is providing that same advantage?
Objects are used dozens of times across PQL standards. The PQL metric by itself is in the tree. That's something it doesn't have the same level of interconnectedness with the rest of the stack that's in on. Whether that's an important distinction to us.
So
For us to decide.
like, you can take like the customers for sure, they don't want to build a huge PQL statement and maintain huge PQL statement. They want them to have them modular. Right? Now, like one KPI might have, I don't know, like 20 smaller sections. What you're, yes, what I'm saying is like, I don't think customers would want to manage these different sections as separate nodes in this. They want this is one thing.
So this is not something. So let's just look at the existing knowledge models and then decide, right? So if people are grouping knowledge in that way, and so they have 50 and each unit is like 5 sub pieces of a PQL query that they group together, great. We know the answer to that question. So like, let's just look at the existing OC implementations, and then we'll decide, hey, most of the time people have one perspectives, or they have like 24 of them, and like here's how they're breaking up. That will tell us some insight about, okay, how do I explain it to you and what should I show it to you?
By the way, I think if we would like to push the merge of perspectives and knowledge models into one thing, data scope or join graph, we can do it. We would be able to do it.
I mean, I don't a priori have an answer to say, I think this is the right way for people to organize stuff, right? I think different people will probably organize stuff in different ways. Our current stack is very unopinionated, right? We sort of give you half a dozen different tools to organize stuff, and we say, you figure out how you want to do it. So let us say, like, this is our user research to say, given an unconstrained set of tools, what do people do, right? If the answer is they all follow the same path, then let's make that a well-paved path, and that's what we'll support it. If people are just doing random shit, whatever, then we can decide whether we should just give them enough group to go do that, or whether we should,
For one thing that I agree is that in this world, knowledge model as a name doesn't make any sense anymore, because it's much bigger than what it's the naming of it. It's very similar to semantic layer or knowledge graph or knowledge model that people. So it's more like a business logic module.
Sure. I mean, it's fine. I get it's another organizational concept. We have to decide if it makes sense to present another organizational module or grouping. Fine. I think we have it right now. We don't have to make a decision tomorrow. We have to make some reasoned decision about whether or not it should show up there, right?
But I just want to answer what I think is like keeping it knowledge model, like the naming of it or like the concept of it. It will introduce that issue that so Jonathan says like, hey, why, when do we?
I think we have choices in front of us, which are, do we make it fun and separate customers? Do we make it small for the page? if it is visible, you're going to explain it. Those are like, and one option is to rename it, and, so that better aligns with what that concept is, and what other options. Or we make it a secondary concept that is, when I edit a KPI, I tell you what knowledge model it's in, but it's not front and center to you, right? Like that's sort of the boundary decision. I would say, let us look at the existing OCDM packages. How many knowledge models do people create? What's their rationale if they have a lot of them, how they're separating stuff out, and then we come back and make a decision. Seem okay?
Yeah.
The knowledge model debate. All right. I think this is a good thing that we agree on what our path forward is. Obviously, are coming from different points of view on what's actually needed, and data should make the decision. So,
I personally, I don't have any problem because it's not that I build this product, but like I talk to these customers a lot. I'm very scared, and we tried it to go and tell them, you know what, you need to create everything separately and maintain it separately.
Yeah, I don't think, again, right? Like what I'm saying is, we need to decide when do we show it to you, how do we show it to you. We have a lot of concepts that only show if you can. So we say, okay, sure, like by default, we'll dump everything at the same time. But when you get 50 transforms, tell you how to organize it and split it up and sequence it separately, right? I see no problem for saying, look, knowledge model is useful when you have more than X entities.
Right.
So that's when we explain it to you to say, okay,
Knowledge model is useful when you
knowledge model, because it's a grouping concept, is useful to you when you have more than 10 entities.
you've got enough stuff that you want to group.
Yes.
Right. So let's assume there's some magic cutoff. We say, okay, we see that everybody has one knowledge model until they have 20 entities, and then suddenly they're like, shit, I need to organize this. Let me figure out some way to do that. Right. And so that it gives us a good answer to say, okay, add your first 20 entities, we've defaulted to one knowledge model. When you start getting past that number, then we say, here's a way to organize it, here's how you can split up your world, blah, 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 right? All of these are reasonable options that let us keep knowledge models around, but have a very different user behavior based on what we show you. Let's look at how people are organizing stuff today, and that will tell us which of these makes sense.
When they create a knowledge model, like after what?
Do we need to answer that now?
No,
There's
we
already,
can give Aaron a chance to look at the existing knowledge models.
So to be honest, right, if we look at right now, it's not the right data, right? Because right now customers are forced to create huge knowledge models. Right now,
Why do you have security?
because it's so with the shared knowledge models, I think we will get to the answer that we want, right? Like smaller. Yes. With the current, like if I look at the existing data, we will see one huge knowledge model because they otherwise they have to use base indexations, and that's like a horrible. It's like a no for them because troubleshooting when something is wrong.
Today, stuff across multiple actual use cases, I need to dump everything for the same knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, if the data tells us that, that's fine.
That has brought a lot of challenges for our customers.
Yeah, I mean,
What-
I've no problem believing you still created a knowledge model
With-
It's probably not the best organization.
That's small.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like
We
we have
have a-
100, it's probably an issue.
We have a what was how many
We have a
pages?
knowledge model that has more words or more characters in it than the Bible.
150,000 pages.
I mean, that's impressive, but it's over.
Yes. I mean, a lot it's very likely like machine generated. Like it's not someone did not code it and stuff. And they like
Are you sure this is not a script gone wrong or something?
I think it probably something like that. They do a lot of like like fully being really explicit about all the people in a statement. They don't like to use like reusable KPIs.
In which case, just write the equal instead of writing.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't understand you could nest QL statements.
Yeah, I think definitely. There's a lot of that going on. Also, there's giant case when statements for business logic. You'll see these 1,000-line plus long case when statements. They just copy and paste over and over again.
So, but we will know with Peak Studio shared knowledge model because they
I
are
mean, this is what I'm saying is, let us see what the OCDM customer said, how many knowledge models they have, and how much junk they have per knowledge model. Let's use that, and then we can go. It seems like something we can easily find out.
And we can make decisions based on data.
But I want to make the decision to, like, with you guys, that we should rename it. We shouldn't call it knowledge model anymore. We should call it business logic module.
I think the thing is we should look to what's understandable for users. So I agree with you. We can rename it. I don't know if it helps to rename
I think it helps a lot, especially because of like the shared knowledge model, right? We already changed how knowledge model is.
I'm perfectly happy to read it. Let's take a look at this.
Okay.
I think the suggestion is
Big
the
one.
data will help me. I think the suggestion is the data might help us figure out how many of these things you should have, et cetera, et cetera. That would help you come up with it. Yes, that's the theory.
But I feel like whatever name we come up with, this group, I don't know, knowledge module, whatever, it's going to be much better than knowledge model that is today.
I don't think it matters if anyone's. I think it matters if the other people can understand what you're talking about. I mean, explaining to us, right? Like, grab your favorite
Explaining
person.
what I'm trying to do here. I mean, what I'm trying to say.
Why don't you just grab your favorite person, whatever name we pick, if that makes more sense to them.
Okay, so I get the green light to rename it.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, pick
At
something
least,
that people
at
will
least,
understand. Yeah.
releasing this new package.
So no philosophical objection to renaming it. You should demonstrate that it's actually easier to understand for people who need to understand it.
And hopefully that's the case for everything we do. That bar should be there always.
My point is that it doesn't matter if anyone cares or not.
We're not the right audience.
We can teach people. We've invented a lot of code names.
I just don't want to. I just don't want to go live with the ontology plus knowledge model because the name is like almost the same. Like if you go to a customer, they'll tell you ontology, knowledge model, knowledge graph, semantic layer.
It's interesting that you say that because it's like it kind of is like back to the box in the box point, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of making that that argument, right? A little bit.
My knowledge graph includes my knowledge model.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I think we're
yeah, it's
I also want to clarify again that ontology is not a product name. It is one that is already taken with a capital O by Palantir. So we're probably not going to call this product ontology, but I don't know what we are going to call it.
taxonomy.
if you call it lowercase.
Data wave. My AI generated name. Yes.
I think
Let's
from
go
the data
process.
pipeline more than the ontology.
Process data.
Okay, what we call it? I deliberately left it there because I didn't want to think about it.
Process weave.
Process semantics.
So don't forget about the current
Is
winner.
that?
The current winner of
Oh yeah,
the other.
yeah. I was like, oh, please.
Blame Ari. It wasn't even in the original list.
No, I
Ari
know.
added it post fact.
Demonstrate that
And then-
nobody cares.
No, then he voted for it.
Yeah, of course he
Like
did.
5 people.
What is this for?
The naming of
Some other
Yeah.
project.
the unified arc line.
Oh, got it.
So we had sent
It's behind now.
out. We had sent out a vote.
Really?
It's not.
Is it because there's a team name PH that you need to?
No. It was just because Ari was like, none of these names are fun. Let me add one. And let me tell everyone to vote for it. And then I was like, well,
Way to subvert the process, sorry.
There was something in the UK about the public
Voting
were able
with
to
both face.
vote you with both face for
Yeah,
this
exactly.
ship, right? For some lifeboat. And so they put it out and everyone could submit their names and vote with both face. It was like
did they,
100,000 more votes than anything else.
did they rename it to like after David Attenborough or something?
I think, yeah, they said we.
That's,
Like,
that's still
call this. We're not gonna call it.
Yeah, they went back on the deal.
Face, but then they just like slowly renamed.
I mean, trusting the average user on the internet. What did you expect?
Given that if we were to just all, for a second believe we're going with knowledge walls, name something how would we imagine this shows up here?
Yeah, I would imagine that would be somewhere over here as a knowledge model. I think you would still want to have metrics and virtual tables, and whatever other things as the top level thing that's cross-cutting.
I think if we add it to this list, we probably add some hierarchy at the left.
Yeah.
So like metrics is a subheading underneath the others or something.
Could it be a filter on these?
No,
What did you say, Anthony?
Like you have a parent heading, which is knowledge.
Like-
Metrics.
This gets us a little bit away from the knowledge horizontal.
The way I think about it is that here below that is business logic. And then when you click on that business logic, you get to all the different business logic modules.
But is
I
there,
think the easy option is that we move perspectives up to semantic models actually, and shared knowledge is like something like that is probably the easier option.
Oh, so you're saying move this line to up here?
Yeah, and then shared knowledge is a link that takes you to the list of knowledge models.
yeah,
Something like that.
I was thinking of
Business
that.
logic, not shared knowledge.
I mean, whatever.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Whatever you rename it
Yes.
to.
And rename
Pizza.
shared knowledge
Oh,
to business
I'll tell you,
knowledge,
come up with a name.
business context, you say?
So
Just business logic.
Logic.
But
Instead of shared knowledge.
is it same as business or does it conflict with business context?
Let's assume that there will be a new name that we will not figure out in the next 5 minutes.
But it just reminds me of something called the business context that we wanted to put next to processes and
Business
things.
context is in our marketing extensively.
Yeah, but that's,
To say
that's something we're stuck with.
it's the pig data plus business context, which is our typical marketing.
And
If we were to match that, we would say that this is the business context,
okay,
and the other.
maybe that's what we're gonna call it then.
No, but
No, because business context is way too broad.
it would refer to everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the semantic stuff. Yeah.
this is like how we presented it to the Exxon or something like that. They wanted to see how this would look. For you.
Because the claim is that
That
you
happens.
need annotations to understand what your business is doing or what your process is doing.
Yeah.
Blah, blah.
Oh, do I share my screen?
Yep, just share right on the top.
Yeah. So objects events, let's say, I don't know if it's business
Right.
context or it's business logic,
Because
whatever.
I
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
seeing this on
You
the
click
list.
here and here you get all the business logic.
So it's already renamed to business context.
It is in the demo as well, if you look.
Think about private side.
Well,
The Gartner one, right?
yeah, whatever, this is create knowledge, etc., calculate other, blah, blah.
So then under business context, you would have different ways of organizing it.
Yeah, I
depending on-
mean, they already built these views that let you filter it down to useful pieces of your knowledge model and stuff. That's and we need to add some filter that lets you see across knowledge models. That part is missing.
Yeah, so if you could,
View all.
It's already there. It's already
Yeah,
there.
things like knowledge model shows up as a column now.
so if your entry point is the metrics bucket, right? Then, and you have 10 knowledge models, then you can say, I want 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah.
Show me only those metrics.
Knowledge model becomes a column.
So you just filter it.
Yeah,
Now choose
he-
your pre-filter.
For example, here you see that everything is coming from a different knowledge model.
Yep, that's. Okay. Cool.
But this is the example that I told you that it was like, we realized immediately that, oh my God, this will go too much. And this is when you say metrics is metrics, filters is filters. And because we went actually and did it, the exercise.
But that's like, but this goes, but would we actually use this UI to display them? I think is the question. We would never use this UI to display them.
Oh, also these things.
Yeah.
My original claim, there are too many original components available in the package. Because you have folders here.
I mean,
you
it
have-
doesn't, because it's representing each of the things on the list, right?
No, yeah. So if you look at this one, this has just one calculated output, right? Event is automated. This knowledge model, so to say.
But what they did is they created like one per metric.
One per metric, one per filter, one per. But this is the same work that you will need also for the creating the metrics, right? Like we just
This, this is the advantage. I want each thing to get. For sure.
If we go back, calculate attributes is still a bugbear to me. Like, how is a calculate attribute not an attribute of the object that it's attached to? So then does it sit under business logic or does it sit under the object? It's not a part of a knowledge model.
It is also stored in a knowledge model, but it's special magic. You gotta give it a special name for central knowledge.
Okay, so we want to show it both essentially under the grouping method that is knowledge model to say, hey, I defined it here, and show it on the object.
And there exists at least one maybe that are central knowledge that are have a user special.
You mean the PQL attributes, right?
I don't know who would default filter from that second view.
I didn't use.
I don't know who would default filter them out from the second view. Like the list of, like if we have a section that says, show me all my knowledge or whatever, I don't know if we want to filter out the share attributes. As in like, do we want to show them? Today we're showing objects, right? Next to an object is a PQL.
Yes.
It would also show up under that knowledge model.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is we should decide whether we want to show it both places or we want to filter it out from the shared knowledge model.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if you're editing one, you would want to edit that from the object. So you would go to the object. Okay.
It's editing for the object.
Right. Okay.
Right now it's editing. So you can edit it in the context of the object. You can also edit it in the knowledge. You can change the definition.
So you cannot change it in the knowledge model.
Oh, we prevent you from editing that.
Native attributes you cannot change. You can add a description of so you can overwrite it like description and but yes.
So, okay, so this is essentially business logic that is attached to the process data under the object thing, right? And it depends on a join graph, and it's stored in a knowledge model. Okay.
CA.
Yeah.
Simple.
Simple, not confusing at all. Okay. I think we can imagine that for now. Okay, so
I need to run out of time.
no problem. Okay,
And then we want to.
we can leave the rest of this for today, or tomorrow. The other things that I have here then are an example of integration via strange worthness, some stuff about packages where I was thinking about
I would like to, so the part that I think is most interesting is the creation flow for these things.
creation flow of which things.
Semantic entities,
What?
like creating them in the context of doing something else.
Okay.
So I'd like us to at least do one or two of those examples, say, while I'm adding objects to a table, while I'm adding an object to a view. Yeah, how do I create these things?
So I think that will be probably a whiteboarding session tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do that.
What's the difference between virtual tables and like objects?
So virtual tables and objects. Virtual table here would be like some PQL statement that generates a table. So that could be a BI cube that you can use, and then you want
And then we
to
said that PQL can generate also objects. PQL statements. You can use PQL to generate objects as well.
I mean, I think yes, but you would want to do that via multi-step. So you want to say, I want to write a table. Generate a table.
Generally, I think these things should appear. If these things are creating tables, they should be in the data page.
But how do you do people from the data page? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Where's the join graph?
So is it objects on top of a join graph or like that's what
you're running. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have to talk about where you define relationships to use in data models that you can do people on without using the semantic data.
Same problem as the calculated attribute example we're just talking. Yes. I mean, but my point is that we should put these things in the right place where they fit logically. If the goal is to create a table, it lives over there.
I think it doesn't, because this is a table that is derived from the semantic concepts. And so you could export it to the data lake, but actually it exists in any data pool where you have this ontology, because it depends on the ontology and not on the source data.
Same is true for attributes.
Sure, but
So there are lots of things like that. We will actually decide they actually need to find it specifically.
There's like different versions of them as to create that way you can
We can
program
actually just run.
them.
but this could be secret.
And the best way to, what it then answer.
So, I mean, that's the question, is do you want to transport it with the ontology when you go, okay, I have a way of creating
If you're creating a random table, put the random table.
Yeah, that's very tough.
I mean, it doesn't matter what you query. If you're you
Whether it's dynamic, whether it's group.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's like if they said something about like event source or source of event,
Yeah.
that's configurable, but like I don't think it's like an event type anymore.
But that's the tricky part, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that cleans things up somewhat. I'm not happy about that if we think that it achieves the goal.
I mean, at some point we want to show you UI that says switch between SQL and PQL and Python.
Yeah.
Yeah. That UI.
You would want just say that as part of some package that you transport around.
We'd probably tell you, hey, pick a perspective to bind to this thing to give you a useful result.
You'd have basically, it would be a loop package that says, okay, you can do this, but you have to bind it to something.
So
I mean, that's great. Then you would still want event logs here.
The
Which are also
logs,
virtual tables.
yeah, we will need to. It's a very.
Whatever process workloads.
So we are working on union table. Union table. On Monday we will start working on union table.
Why is union table not a virtual table when you would define it somewhere else?
Yeah, call it whatever, like virtual.
No, I'm asking Jonathan because he just suggested that we move the virtual tables to the data
Union
layer.
table is not a process. It's not a process workload. So we should put it down
I'm just telling you which.
there.
And then
The PAM.
the PAM workload is a calculated attribute. It's mainly a calculated attribute, is conforming or not.
Those ones should be. Those ones should be in here.
Okay, so calculated attributes make sense. That they'd be along with,
The thing we should show here is like a PAM or whatever. Like those are the things that people that we're supposed to be showing.
but a PAM should be attached to a process model, right?
Sure.
So we have process models, so why wouldn't we show adherence for the process model?
The thing that you can edit is PAM.
Is it? Can't you edit a process model? Is that CPM as well?
This is from your. But it's not the input. So you build what PAM visualize it. You're going to call that UI.
Right.
And the output for it is a bunch of annotations on the entities that you built on the same conforming non-conforming. So you get out a bunch of table annotations or object annotations and say
Or-
this object is conforming, this object is not.
So it's at the object level.
It's at the it's at the case level basically.
But it's visualized on the graph, or is it visualized as a graph on the graph itself
Right.
to define what the ideal model is? But then the non-conformance part, how is that reflected?
Case.
So it's an annotation tool.
Yeah, it's an annotation. The output is an annotation.
Yeah, I think
So should we just put it under annotations instead?
I think we should just call it PAM. That doesn't mean we don't need to be.
But like, where does it belong here? Like, is it its own
the
separate
cross
project?
section for process mining stuff.
Process adherence.
Process adherence, event logs, they can all be in there.
Would I stick process model vented?
Sure.
Okay, so add a process mining section.
We're a
basically.
process mining.
Sure.
Put in process multiple times in the UI is a good.
Yeah, fair enough.
Even if it doesn't make sense logically.
process knowledge.
Process logic,
Process
logic.
process logic, business logic.
All right. I will, change that for tomorrow.
Add a couple more processes.
Yeah.
To this page.
So we shouldn't go ahead and proceed with union table in the knowledge model? The customers would be,
I mean, I told you union table shouldn't be there. Yeah.
I feel sorry.
The union table on its own.
No, it's not, I don't mind about business apps. I mind about customers. They all of them, they're asking for it.
What do they want a union?
So they use this function, this pickle operator, right?
Yeah.
So, and they use it a lot, but there is no way for them to store it. So what they have to do is like they have to copy paste.
I told
This is
you,
what I'm afraid of.
don't bother building the union table. Just build it apart. Like the PQL query is a better thing for us.
So you can build and save a
Arbitrary-
SQL transformation
Arbitrary
into
table creation.
Yes, but it's not that simple.
Arbitrary table creation or query?
Arbitrary table creation.
from
Give it-
SQL.
Select stuff, whatever, create table as.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. PQL is different.
But I think
I figured I'd come say hi.
Hi,
Hello.
you're breaking it up. Hello.
Yes, I'm also the instrument to be called.
I wouldn't have gone that far, for sure.
You go by many names. How are you guys doing?
Good. Been here all day.
I'm good.
I am Theo.
Are we still friends, guys? Everybody still cool?
What do you think, Aaron?
Not with everyone.
Some of you might be. fans.
Some of us need some beers, I think.
Yeah, I think it might be 3:00. Want a beer?
I'm good. As it happens, I am gluten free, so actually that wouldn't kill me. But I appreciate the offer nevertheless.
Cider? Wine? Anyway.
I'll have to know about.
And they're deal editions.
Happy workshop,
Thanks,
thanks.
guys. But,
How are you doing?
Good.
and that.
It's been a great workshop so far. It's been a great workshop so far.
yeah, I think we answered most of the questions.
At least I don't feel like we're behind some schedule.
Why everyone laughing?
Because it's not scheduled.
Obviously,
Why
why
you don't have deadlines, you can't miss them.
Well,
Let's say we have a long history of making agendas for workshops and then we just don't follow.
yeah.
You're lucky Art's not here.
No, I made this comment, Dan,
What?
that he loves making agendas.
Okay.